Chapter 370. You're talking nonsense. Hua Ziyin became so angry that his beard twitched. I've been a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner all my life, and I've never seen anyone fill a prescription without weighing it. Qin Haodong said, Mr. Hua, I'm really in a hurry. If you don't believe me, you can check it. Then he continued to fill the prescription. Hua Ziyin snorted. This young man was really stubborn. He asked, How much did you just catch? 2 taels and 1 qian. Qin Haodong said without looking back. Hua Ziyin picked up the herb and put it on the scale. His eyes widened in surprise. The scale showed that it was 2 taels and 1 qian, not a cent more or less. How could this be possible? He must have guessed it. He asked again, How many fleece flower did you catch? 6 taels and 5 qian. Hua Ziyin checked it again, and it was still the same. Bodhi leaf. 3 taels and 2 qian. Chicken bone grass. 4 taels and 6 qian. After checking 6 or 7 herbs in a row, Hua Ziyin was finally convinced. He knew that the young man in front of him was really capable. The herbs he caught with his hands were exactly the same as those on the scale. After calming himself down, he stepped forward and said, Little brother, how did you do this? His initial anger towards Qin Haodong had turned into admiration, and he even addressed him as little brother. I've been filling prescriptions with my grandfather since I was a child. The more I do, the better I am. Qin Haodong gave a random reason, then put the herbs together, and poured them into a pot of decoction soup next to him. Little brother, what's this prescription? Why can't I see it? Hua Ziyin had been dealing with traditional Chinese medicine for so many years. If it was an ordinary prescription, he could know what it was by looking at the herbs. But he couldn't see anything wrong with the medicine Qin Haodong made. Mr. Hua, let's talk about it later. I'm in a hurry to save someone. Qin Haodong was about to boil the medicine. Hua Ziyin was full of curiosity about Qin Haodong at this time. How could he let him go so easily? He quickly said, Leave it to little Zhao. Let's have a good talk. As he spoke, he called over a young nurse beside him. The nurse's name was Zhaoying. She was a nurse specially assigned to the traditional Chinese medicine consultation room. She had always been lazy and would be late every day. Anyway, the traditional Chinese medicine consultation room was not profitable, so she did not have to worry about her bonus being deducted. Because she came late, Qin Haodong did not see her just now. Hua Ziyin said, Xiao Zhao, go and boil this pot of medicine. Seeing the old man's enthusiasm, Qin Haodong handed the pot to Zhaoying. At the same time, he repeatedly told her what to pay attention to during the decoction. Got it, Zhaoying answered impatiently, and raised her hand to take the pot. When she turned around, she immediately curled her lips and thought to herself, Isn't it just boiling medicine? You're still so wishy-washy. Do you really think you're a medical saint? When Zhaoying went to boil the medicine, Hua Ziyin immediately sat down with Qin Haodong and asked eagerly, Little brother, what's going on? What kind of medicine is this? What kind of illness are you attending to? My medicine is called pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup. It has an extremely powerful effect on protecting and nourishing the heart. Qin Haodong told him what had just happened, and then said, There's only 1 hour left. We have to hurry up and boil this medicine to increase the success rate of the operation. Hua Ziyin was stunned. He had studied traditional Chinese medicine all his life, but he had never heard of pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup. Little brother, is your medicine reliable? Can it really work? Can it really protect people's heart? Of course it's reliable. It's a matter of life and death. How could I joke about it? Hua Ziyin was still confused. Qin Haodong smiled and said, When the operation is over, Mr. Hua will know how effective the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup is. Oh, Hua Ziyin responded doubtfully, and then began to chat with Qin Haodong. As the conversation went on, he was more and more surprised. He found that Qin Haodong's understanding of traditional Chinese medicine had reached an incredible level. At first, he asked some questions about traditional Chinese medicine with a testing attitude. He wanted to see what this young man's attainments in traditional Chinese medicine were like. However, Qin Haodong answered him fluently and had a deeper understanding than him, which amazed him. Later, the conversation between the two became an equal exchange. Later, He directly asked Qin Haodong for advice, and asked all the questions that had been dormant in his heart for many years. But no matter how difficult the questions were, Qin Haodong could quickly give almost perfect answers. Hua Ziyan asked with admiration, "Little brother, who did you learn your medical skills from?" "It's a family skill. I learned it from my grandfather," Qin Haodong said. "I admire you so much. I've lived for more than 70 years, and you are the most accomplished traditional Chinese medicine person I've ever seen. It's really rare for you to have such high medical skills at such a young age. I'm afraid even the legendary medical sage Qin Haodong can't compare with you." Qin Haodong smiled but didn't speak. He didn't need to compete with himself. Both of them had a love for traditional Chinese medicine from the bottom of their hearts, so they talked happily. More than half an hour passed quickly. At this time, Zhaoying came back with the pot and said, "The medicine is ready." Qin Haodong sniffed and frowned slightly. Then he opened the lid of the pot and sniffed it carefully. He looked up at Zhaoying and said, "What happened? Why didn't you boil the medicine according to my instructions?" Zhaoying was slightly stunned. How did he know? But she wouldn't admit such a thing without evidence. She stiffened her neck and said, "I boiled the medicine according to your instructions." "Impossible. The smell of the medicine is not right at all. You must not have followed the procedure." Qin Haodong was secretly annoyed. He had just told the little nurse clearly, and even explained every minute of the heat when boiling the medicine in great detail. He didn't expect that Zhaoying didn't listen at all. He said with a sullen face, "The medicine of traditional Chinese medicine must be done perfectly. The medicine you made is not effective at all. It will kill people." No wonder he was angry. This medicine was related to Feng Zixiong's life, so he couldn't be careless. Hearing this, the little nurse's face also became cold. "Isn't it just a traditional Chinese medicine? What's the big deal? It's your first day here. Why are you pretending? Do you really think you're a medical sage?" Time was running out. Qin Haodong had no time to pay attention to the self-righteous little nurse. He hurried into the pharmacy again. This medicine couldn't be used at all. He had to get a new one. Now there were only 10 minutes left, so he had to hurry. The little nurse glanced at his back and said disdainfully, "What are you pretending for? You make yourself look like a magic doctor. I really don't know where you come from." T. After that, she seemed to feel that she had gone too far. She turned to Hua Ziyan and said, "I really don't know where he came from. With you here, he can't tell me what to do." Then she found that Hua Ziyan's face was livid. He raised his hand and pointed at her. "Zhaoying, from now on, you don't have to come to work anymore." "What? Sir, what did I do wrong?" Zhaoying was completely dumbfounded. She could look down on Qin Haodong, the newcomer, but she couldn't ignore Hua Ziyan's attitude. The old man could make her lose her job with a word. In Guangren Hospital, those who could work as nurses in the traditional Chinese medicine clinic were the worst. They had no connections or background. If even here didn't want her, she could only pack up and go home. As a nurse, you don't know how to respect doctors and traditional Chinese medicine. Why should I keep you here? Pack up and get out of here. The old man was really angry. Even he respected Qin Haodong's ability from the bottom of his heart. How could he tolerate a little nurse offending him? Zhao Ying's face was pale. It was the first time that she had seen Hua Ziyan so angry in a long time. She knew that she would lose her job completely. She just didn't understand why Hua Ziyan valued such a young man so much. Could it be that he had a backer? But how could a person with a backer come to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic to be a little doctor? In the pharmacy, Qin Haodong's speed had reached the extreme. In less than a minute, he grabbed the medicinal materials again, poured them into the medicine pot, and began to boil the medicine himself. Hua Ziyan was dumbfounded. He had never seen anyone who could grab and boil herbs to such an extreme. It was simply amazing. There was not much time left. It would be too late to boil the medicine according to the ordinary method. So Qin Haodong used greenwood genuine qi to quickly stimulate the medicinal properties of various medicinal materials. 7 or 8 minutes later, a strong smell of medicine wafted out. The world's first pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup was fresh out of the oven. At the same time, in the ward, Lu Fei said with a cold face. There are only 10 minutes left, and Tang Feng hasn't come back yet. I think he's a liar. We don't have to wait for him. It's time to start the operation. Nalan Wuxia said in a deep voice. We agreed to wait for an hour. There are still 10 minutes left. What's the hurry? Lu Fei turned to look at Feng Ziying and said, Sir, the patient's condition is very critical and may deteriorate at any time. We can't delay any longer. I suggest the operation immediately. Although Feng Ziying was very worried about his brother, thinking of the less than 5% success rate, he gritted his teeth and said, Let's wait a little longer. Dr. Tang should be back soon. This, Lu Fei's face was very ugly. For a little Chinese medicine practitioner, he was asked to wait here with a scalpel. This was obviously not giving him face. However, the patient's family did not agree, so he could not force the operation. Otherwise, no one could afford the consequences. Time passed. There were only 2 minutes left, but there was still no sign of Qin Haodong. At this moment, a young nurse in the ward ran out and cried in panic. Dr. Liu, it's bad. The patient's condition suddenly deteriorated. It's very critical. Hearing this, everyone at the door changed their expressions. Lu Fei cried, It's all your fault. You had to wait for a strange Chinese medicine practitioner. Now the patient's condition has deteriorated. It will be too late if we don't operate now. Feng Ziying said nervously, Dr. Liu, you have to save my brother. Lu Fei waved his hand and said, We can't wait any longer. Start the operation now. Although there were only 2 minutes left, the situation was critical. If something really happened to Feng Zixiong, no one could bear the responsibility. Nalan Wuxia and the others could not stop him. Lu Fei put on his mask and hurried into the operating room. Feng Ziying's eyes were wide open. He stared at the red light above the operating room and kept praying for his brother in his heart, hoping that he would be safe. At this time, a young nurse came out. Chapter 371. Qin Haodong walked in front with a pot of medicine, followed by the white-haired Huazian panting, Wait for me, little brother. The old man's eyes were burning. He had just seen Qin Haodong's magical way of making medicine. It should have taken 40 minutes to make a pot of medicine, but it was done in less than 10 minutes. It was an eye-opener for him. So he naturally came to see the effect of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup. Glancing at the red light on the top of the operating room, Qin Haodong's face darkened, and he asked, Has the operation begun? Nalan Wuxia said, There's no other way. 2 minutes ago, Feng Zixiong's injury suddenly worsened, so the operation has to be carried out in advance. 2 minutes. There's still time. I'll take the medicine in and give it to the patient. Then he was about to enter the operating room. Huazian said, Little brother, let me do it. Given Lu Fei's character, he won't let you give medicine to someone on his operating table. And you've just arrived. You can't get in without a chess card. He had fought with Lu Fei for so many years in the hospital, so he naturally knew this guy's character. It was okay to give the patient the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup before the operation. But Lu Fei would never agree to give the patient traditional Chinese medicine on his operating table. Qin Haodong thought for a moment. He had come to the hospital undercover, so it was better to keep a low profile. He handed the pot to Huazian. Thank you, Mr. Hua. Huazian nodded, took the pot, opened the door of the operating room with his chess card, and then walked in. In the operating room, the doctors and nurses were busy, and the operation was going on nervously. Huazian glanced at the heart monitor next to him, and his expression changed. Although he was a Chinese medicine practitioner, he still knew a little about the most basic Western medicine. At this time, the curve of the heart on the screen had almost become a straight line, which meant that the heartbeat was extremely weak and could stop at any time. Fang Yuqi, the assistant, said, Dr. Liu, the patient's condition is too dangerous now. I'm afraid he can't be saved. Lu Fei said, Don't worry about that. We have to finish the operation anyway. If we can't save him, there's nothing we can do. Then he told the surrounding doctors and nurses to get ready, and wanted to take the dagger out of Feng Zixiong's chest. Fang Yuqi didn't speak. Surgeons like them were used to life and death. Although they would try their best to save every life during the surgery, they would not be too upset if they could not save it. At this moment, the patient's heart could stop beating at any time. Under such circumstances, the patient might lose his life the moment the dagger was pulled out. Wait a minute, let him drink this medicine first. Huazi, and opened the pot in his hand, and a strong smell of Chinese medicine filled the operating room. Hearing the shout, Lu Fei withdrew his hand that was about to draw the saber. He turned around and said angrily, Huazian, are you crazy? This is a surgical operation room. What are you doing here? Hurry up and take out these things you've made of grass roots and rotten bark. Hearing this, Huazian's eyes immediately widened and he said angrily, You have forgotten your ancestors. Which of your ancestors didn't survive on grass roots and bark? TCM is a treasure left behind by our Chinese ancestors. You can worship foreigners, but you can't belittle TCM. That's cruel and unscrupulous. Old man Hua, who are you calling heartless? Lu Fei threw down the scalpel and shouted angrily at Huazian. It seemed that he wanted to fight with Huazi, and at a close distance, but he was stopped by Fang Yuqi. Although Huazi and was over 70 years old and had white hair, he was not afraid of Lu Fei at all. He said coldly, Lu, have you forgotten the duty of a doctor? Whether it's TCM or Western medicine, the patient is lying in bed now. No matter what the situation is, you must think of the patient first. He raised his finger to the heart monitor next to him, which had almost stopped beating. You can see the situation. The patient is in danger of dying at any time. If Dr. Lu is sure to save him, I will not say a word and apologize to you immediately. But now you can't think of a good way. Would you rather risk other people's lives? You don't even want to try traditional Chinese medicine. You are selfish. Lu Fei said coldly, This is my operating table. I decide how to treat the patient. In any case, I will not let my patient drink TCM. Huazian said angrily, You want the patient to die? This is murder. Have you forgotten that you are a doctor? Lu Fei sneered, Murder? Well, there are so many policemen outside. Let them arrest me. Huazi, and was so angry that his eyes were on fire. He said angrily, Lu Fei, where are your medical ethics? In your eyes, this patient is just a life that can be sacrificed at any time. Have you ever thought about his family? Have you ever thought about his parents and children? Have you ever thought that your one wrong decision could destroy several families? Lu Fei's face froze, but he insisted, Old Hua, you talk too much nonsense. Get out of here, and don't delay my operation. No, I can't just watch a life die like this. I have to make him drink the medicine with my own hands. Huazi and strode to the operating table with the pot of medicine. Old man Hua, stop right there. Lu Fei shouted, and was about to stop Huazian, but was stopped by Fang Yuqi next to him. Dr. Lu, we have no better way now. I think we can let old Hua have a try. Lu Fei didn't expect Fang Yuqi to oppose him. He said angrily, Have you forgotten who you are? You are just an assistant. What right do you have to make a decision? If something happens, will you take responsibility? Fang Yuqi's face also became cold. Although I am an assistant, I am also a doctor. I can't watch a patient die. No matter what happens today, I will take full responsibility. Well, old Hua Fang Yuqi, since you are so capable, you can do the operation today. I won't do it. Lu Fei took off his mask and gloves angrily, and threw them beside the operating table. Fang Yuqi looked at him and said coldly, Lu Fei, you really don't deserve to be a doctor. Huazi, and had no time to pay attention to Lu Fei. He opened the pot, and fed Feng Zixiong spoonfuls of the medicine juice with a spoon. Lu Fei looked at Fang Yuqi and said angrily, It seems that you are not willing to be an assistant. Don't think you can replace me like this. I tell you, when today's operation is over, you can't even be a doctor. Fang Yuqi said lightly, I don't care. I only know that I am still a doctor, and I have to be responsible for my patients. She turned to the others in the operating room and said, I hope you can cooperate with me to complete the next operation. No matter what happens, I promise to take responsibility alone. You don't need to take any responsibility. What we have to do now is to try our best to save people. Dr. Fang, we all listen to you. The others said in unison. Good, very good. You are going to rebel, aren't you? Seeing that he had lost control of the operating room, Lu Fei couldn't stand it anymore. He pointed to Feng Yuqi and Hua Ziyan and cried, "Wait and see. I'll go to the director and sue you now." With that, he stormed out of the operating room. Outside the operating room, a group of policemen were waiting anxiously. Feng Ziying was worried about his brother, and Nalan Wuxia, and the others were worried about their comrades. When they saw Lu Fei coming out of the operating room, they immediately surrounded him. Feng Ziying said, "Dr. Lu, how is my brother? Does that pot of traditional Chinese medicine work?" Lu Fei said with a dark face, "Did you find old Hua?" Feng Ziying was stunned and said, "What's wrong, Dr. Lu? Didn't we agree to give my brother traditional Chinese medicine within an hour?" Lu Fei wanted to get angry, but he didn't dare to in front of so many policemen. Finally, he said with a dark face, "Since you believe in traditional Chinese medicine, let it save your brother. From now on, whatever happens in the operating room has nothing to do with me." With that, he left without looking back, ignoring Feng Ziying's shouts. "Captain Nalan, Dr. Tang, what does Dr. Lu mean?" Nalan Wuxia said, "Don't worry about him. I believe Zixiong will be fine." Qin Haodong patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry. As long as he drinks that medicine, your brother will be fine." Feng Ziying nodded. Now that things had come to this, he could only pray and wait. On the other side, in the director's office, Lu Fei said angrily, "Director, I want to complain about Hua Ziyan and Feng Yuqi. They've gone too far. They don't take the rules of the hospital seriously at all." Director Zhang Lijun sat behind his desk, put down the teacup in his hand, looked at the emotional Lu Fei and said, "Dr. Lu, don't worry. Sit down and talk about it slowly." Lu Fei was the attending physician of the surgery department of their hospital. His surgical skills were very high, and he attached great importance to him. With that, he asked Lu Fei to sit on the sofa opposite him, and then asked, "Although old Hua is a little stubborn, he works in the traditional Chinese medicine department and doesn't interfere with your Western medicine department at all. How did he offend you? Besides, isn't Feng Yuqi your assistant? Why do you want to complain about her?" Lu Fei said emotionally, "Director, you don't know that I was performing a very important operation just now, but old Hua took advantage of his seniority and went too far. He brought his traditional Chinese medicine to my operating table and wanted to give it to my patient, who was about to be operated on." "Is that so?" Zhang Lijun frowned slightly. Hua Zi, and used to be his father's subordinate, and had saved his father's life, so he had always been very tolerant of Hua Ziyan. That was why the traditional Chinese medicine department had been preserved. But he hadn't expected that the old man would go too far. Lu Fei continued, "Director, if people knew that our Guangren hospital gave traditional Chinese medicine to a patient on the operating table, we would definitely be laughed at by our peers and seriously affect our hospital's reputation. More importantly, the patient's life was in danger and he could die at any time, but I couldn't stop him." At the critical moment, Feng Yuqi stood on old Hua's side and said that if I didn't save him, she would save him. If I didn't do the operation, she would do it. How could she be an assistant? I really had no choice but to report to you. We can't let them fool around, or it will seriously affect our hospital's reputation. That's too much." After hearing Lu Fei's words, Zhang Lijun's face changed greatly. He jumped up from his chair and said, "Let's go and see what these people want. This is still a hospital, not a place. How can they do this?" "Director, you must not be polite this time, or our hospital will really be in chaos in the future." Lu Fei followed Zhang Lijun with a smug smile. He continued to add fuel to the fire. He wanted to seize this opportunity to completely bring down the traditional Chinese medicine department. Chapter 372. Thinking of this, he was not so angry. On the contrary, he was secretly happy. By making such a scene, he not only pushed away the responsibility for the risky operation, but also gave him a chance to clean up his old enemy. After such a big thing, it was estimated that Zhang Lijun would no longer care about face this time. He would definitely give Hua Zi a hard time and completely uproot the department of traditional Chinese medicine. Such a modern hospital should not have such a department without any scientific basis. After Lu Fei left, everyone in the operating room turned their attention to the pot of traditional Chinese medicine in Hua Ziyan's hand. They wondered if it could bring miracles to the patient. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When Hua Ziyan finished the medicine in his hand, the heart monitor next to him began to change. The heartbeat curve, which had been almost in a straight line, suddenly began to change, and it beat more and more vigorously. 5 minutes later, Feng Zixiong's heart rate curve was no different from that of a normal person. Everyone's eyes widened, including Hua Ziyan. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. A minute ago, they saw clearly what kind of state Hua Ziyan was in. He was really in danger, and his heart could stop beating at any time. But now, after drinking the pot of black medicine soup, his heart was beating more normally than a normal person's. What on earth was he drinking? Was it traditional Chinese medicine or magic soup? Fang Yuqi was the first to recover from the shock. She said to Hua Ziyan, "Mr. Hua, what kind of medicine is this? How can it have such a great effect on the heart? It's a miracle." Hua Ziyan said, "I don't have this ability. This is traditional Chinese medicine made by Tang Feng. It's called pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup. Its effect is really amazing. It deserves the word magic." Amazing, it's amazing. I never thought that traditional Chinese medicine could have such a great effect. As a surgeon, Fang Yuqi didn't really reject traditional Chinese medicine, but she didn't believe in it either. This pot of medicine soup had completely changed her mind. "Dr. Zhang, hurry up with the operation. I don't know how long this pot of medicine soup will last. We have to save the patient as soon as possible." Hua Ziyan certainly wouldn't leave before the operation was over. Although Fang Yuqi had just said that she would take responsibility for the operation, how could he blame it on a young man? If the operation was unsuccessful, he would bear all the responsibility. "Don't worry, old man. According to the patient's current condition, the success rate of the surgery is at least 90%, or even 100%. Fang Yuqi was full of confidence. Holding the scalpel in her hand, there was a fiery look in her eyes. In fact, her surgical skills were not low, but she was too inexperienced and was suppressed by Lu Fei, so she could only play the role of an assistant. Today she finally had the opportunity to show her skills. With the cooperation of other medical staff, the surgery began in an orderly manner. Outside the operating room, the sound of hurried footsteps came from the other side of the corridor. Zhang Lijun was in front, Lu Fei was behind him, and there were a few more people in charge of other hospitals next to them. All of them looked serious and even angry. "Dean, do you smell it? This is a modern hospital, yet the entire corridor is filled with the smell of Chinese medicine. How are other patients going to see this?" Lu Fei seized every opportunity to discredit traditional Chinese medicine and add fuel to the fire for Hua Ziyan. Hearing the voice, Nailan Wuxia and the others immediately looked back. Seeing Lu Fei and the others, Qin Haodong immediately understood what was going on. Now it was not convenient for him to attract too much attention, so he whispered in Nailan Wuxia's ear, "Now is the critical moment of the operation. These people are here to make trouble. We must stop them." Nailan Wuxia understood and waved her hand. She said to her policeman, "Guard the operating room. No one is allowed to enter without my order." Lu Fei trotted ahead of Zhang Lijun and said to Nailan Wuxia and the others, "Make way, everyone. We're going in." Feng Ziying didn't like the doctor who ran away. If it weren't for the influence, he would have pressed Lu Fei to the ground and kicked him hard. He said with a cold face, "What are you going to do? My brother is having an operation. If you want to go in, you have to wait until the operation is over." With the dean behind him, Lu Fei was much more confident. He shouted, "Although you are policemen, this is the operating room of our hospital. You have no right to stop us from going in. Get out of the way." Nailan Wuxia said, "Dr. Lu, although this is your hospital, our policemen are lying inside. No one can go in before the operation is over." Lu Fei wanted to get angry, but he saw the warning on Nailan Wuxia's shoulder. He calmed down and said, "Officer, you still don't know that those people are playing with the lives of your policemen inside. I'm going in to stop them. You don't have to worry about that." Nalan Wuxia said sarcastically. I remember Dr. Lu just said that no matter what happens inside, it has nothing to do with you, so you don't have to worry about it. You. In the face of Nalan Wuxia, who didn't give him any face, Lu Fei had no choice but to turn back to Zhang Lijun and several hospital leaders and say, Director, these people don't agree with us to stop this operation. Zhang Lijun couldn't do anything in the face of the angry policeman. He glanced around and suddenly saw Wang Jianfeng standing next to him with his hands behind his back. They had dealt with each other several times before, so they were familiar with each other. He stepped forward and said, Director Wang, I didn't expect you to be here. Wang Jianfeng said, It's our policemen who are injured inside. Zhang Lijun said, Director Wang, to tell you the truth, there has never been an operation like this in our hospital. I don't think it's appropriate. We must stop it. As soon as he said this, Wang Jianfeng interrupted him and said, Director Zhang, I don't care whether there is a precedent or not. I just want to ask if the operation is stopped, what are the chances of my people surviving? Zhang Lijun turned to look at Lu Fei. After all, Lu Fei was the attending doctor, and he knew the condition of the injured best. Well, there is basically no chance of survival. Lu Fei quickly explained, but this has nothing to do with stopping the operation. Before I came out, the patient's heart was about to stop beating. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on for long. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a figure rushing over and punching him hard in the face. It was Feng Ziying who did it. He grabbed Lu Fei's collar and scolded, Bastard, my brother's life is in danger inside. As the attending doctor, you actually ran out. If anything happens to my brother, I will never forgive you. After that, he punched Lu Fei in the face several times in a row, making his nose and face swollen. Help! Director, help! Lu Fei covered his face and asked Zhang Lijun for help. Nalan Wuxia waved her hand, and several people immediately went up and pulled Feng Ziying back. Although she also hated this irresponsible Lu Fei. After all, Feng Ziying was a policeman. It was not good to be too impulsive. Although Feng Ziying was pulled back, he still looked at Lu Fei with fire in his eyes. Lu Fei dared not look at him at all. He turned to Zhang Lijun and said, Director, it's not that I don't want to save people, but they don't do what I ask at all. Zhang Lijun frowned and said, Lu Fei, no matter what the reason is as an attending doctor, you can't just let go of the treatment process, can you? He reprimanded Lu Fei, but it was just a formality. Today it was Hua Ziyan and Fang Yuqi who were responsible. Turning back, Zhang Lijun said to Wang Jianfeng, Director Wang, although the injured are now your policemen, you should not interfere with the treatment of our hospital. If so, you will have to bear the consequences independently. Nalan Wuxia had told Wang Jianfeng that Tang Feng was Qin Haodong. She had 100% trust in Qin Haodong's medical skills. So she said without hesitation, Director Zhang, don't worry. I will bear all the consequences. There is only one condition. You can't disturb the treatment inside now. Seeing that Wang Jianfeng had said this, Zhang Lijun naturally could not say anything more. He could only wait outside the operating room. Lu Fei wiped his swollen face, leaned over to Zhang Lijun, and whispered, Director, it's not my fault. They forced me out of the operating room. Zhang Lijun did not speak, but nodded slightly, which made Lu Fei feel a lot more at ease. Time ticked by and soon, everyone had been waiting for a full hour. Just when everyone was getting a little restless, the red light above the operating theater suddenly went off. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. This meant that the operation was over, but they did not know the result. The operation ended so quickly. The injured must have died on the operating table. You didn't listen to me. Now you're dumbfounded. Lu Fei hid and muttered to himself, showing a trace of schadenfreude. But now his face was swollen, which made him look very strange. No wonder he thought so. Generally speaking, such a big operation would take at least 2 or 3 hours. Now it was over in an hour. From a normal point of view, there would be no good result. Under the gaze of everyone around, the door of the operating room slowly opened, and a figure rushed out. After a short pause, he rushed straight to Qin Haodong. It was Tang Ziyan. He took Qin Haodong's hand and said excitedly, "Dr. Tang, where did you get this prescription?" He had just seen the magical effect of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup in the operating room, and he was already very excited. As soon as the door of the operating room opened, he immediately came over to ask what had happened. Qin Haodong naturally could not explain the source of this prescription. Just then, Lu Fei rushed over, pointed to Hua Ziyan and said, "Dr. Hua, I have long said that traditional Chinese medicine is not reliable, and that we should believe in Western medicine, which represents science. But you had to give the patient Chinese medicine on the operating table. Now you regret it, don't you?" He saw Hua Ziyan's excited look and thought that he wanted to blame Qin Haodong for the failure of the operation. Not only him, but many people had the same idea. Hua Ziyan looked back at Lu Fei and said, "I do regret it, but what I regret is that I didn't slap you. You have forgotten your ancestors and insulted the treasures left by our ancestors again and again." Lu Fei did not show weakness and cried, "Hua Ziyan, you still don't realize your mistake after making such a big mistake. How dare you be so stubborn?" Chapter 373. Hua Ziyan's expression changed and he said, "Now I remember. Lu Fei, you are the doctor in charge of this operation. Can't you take some responsibility?" "Old Hua, now you remember that I am the doctor in charge. Do you want to beg me?" Lu Fei said proudly, "Everyone has just heard me. I made it very clear that no matter what happened, this operation has nothing to do with me." His voice was loud and his tone was firm, so that everyone present could hear him clearly. Qin Haodong was amused. The old man looked honest, but he was actually an old fox. With just a few words, he had made Lu Fei run around and completely blocked his way out. A playful smile appeared on Hua Ziyan's old face and he said jokingly, "I'm relieved. Otherwise, I would be afraid that you would take the credit." As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Ziying, who was next to him, couldn't help but get nervous. He stepped forward and said nervously, "Old master, do you mean my brother?" Hua Ziyan glanced at him, and then at Nailan Wuxia and the others who looked nervous. He said, "I have good news. Just now, Dr. Tang Feng of our consulting room contributed a dose of magic Chinese medicine, which made the operation very smooth and successful. The patient is now out of danger and is expected to wake up soon. This operation was very difficult. The success was due to Dr. Tang's Chinese medicine, which protected the patient's heart. Although Dr. Tang was not in the operating room, he was the biggest contributor." Speaking of this, he turned to Lu Fei and said, "The success of this operation is not only a miracle for our Guangren hospital, but also a miracle in the history of human medicine. I believe that our hospital will reward you according to your contribution later. Dr. Lu is really noble and selfless. He will never take credit for anything that is not his own." Lu Fei's face changed again and again, and his brain was spinning rapidly. Could it be that the man had really been saved? Impossible, that was impossible. Thinking of Feng Zixiong's heart, which had almost stopped beating, he immediately realized that Hua Zi and was setting him up. There was absolutely no credit for him to take, but a big black pot waiting for him. Thinking of this, he said with a smile, "Old Hua, do you think I'm a fool? Do you want me to take responsibility with you? Don't even think about it." When I left the operating room, the patient was already on the verge of death. His heart could stop beating at any time. In such a situation, there was almost no possibility of him surviving. In just 1 hour, you said that the operation was successful, and he was out of danger? Aren't you trying to fool a fool? I think he's dead." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a huge fist appear in front of him, and then it smashed into his face with a bang. This punch was so powerful that it directly knocked him to the ground. 2 streams of blood spurted out of his nostrils. It was Feng Ziying. He glared at Lu Fei and shouted, "As a doctor, you're not happy to hear that my brother is fine. Instead, you curse him to die. Are you still human? Do you still have any medical ethics?" Me. Lu Fei's nose and mouth were bleeding, but he couldn't say anything. What he said just now was a bit too much. Even Zhang Lijun looked at him with dissatisfaction. At this time, Feng Yuqi also came out of the operating room. followed by two nurses pushing Feng Zixiong on the bed. Seeing Zhang Lijun also appear at the door of the operating room, Feng Yuqi was slightly stunned. "Director?" Then she immediately understood. Lu Fei said that he was going to complain to the director. It seemed that he had really gone and moved the director to the operating room. "Dr. Feng, what the hell is going on?" Zhang Lijun's tone was full of dissatisfaction. He also didn't believe everything Hua Ziyan had just said. In his opinion, traditional Chinese medicine was good for treating minor illnesses such as colds and fevers. But it couldn't be of much help in surgery. Feng Yuqi said, "Director, I had a disagreement with Dr. Lu during the operation. As an assistant, I completed the operation. It's my fault. No matter how the hospital deals with it, I have no opinion." Her attitude was sincere, but Hua Ziyan didn't care. He stepped forward and said, "What's the punishment? You've successfully completed this epic surgery and saved a life. At the same time, you've also redeemed the reputation of our hospital. Not only can you not be punished for such a great contribution, but you should also be rewarded heavily?" Zhang Lijun looked at him doubtfully and asked, "You mean the patient was really saved?" Hua Ziyan said, "Of course it's true. I won't lie casually." Zhang Lijun still didn't believe it, and turned to look at Feng Yuqi. Feng Yuqi also nodded and said, "Yes, director. The operation was very successful. The patient is completely out of danger." "It's really a success. That's great, that's really great." Hearing the news, the policemen gathered around cheered. They had thought the operation had failed and Feng Zixiong was dead, so no one dared to approach the bed. Feng Ziying burst into tears of joy and immediately rushed to the bed. The frightened nurses hurried to stop him. "The patient has just had an operation. Don't touch him. Don't touch him. Don't touch him." Feng Ziying looked at his brother in the hospital bed. Although his face was still a little pale, his breathing was steady. He was indeed alive. He couldn't help but be too happy to speak. "Impossible, it's impossible. You must be lying." Lu Fei got up from the ground and strode to the bed. When he saw Feng Zixiong breathing normally, his face became paler than Feng Zixiong's after the operation. Only then did he realize that Hua Ziyan had not lied to him. He had really given up a great credit. But he couldn't understand how Feng Zixiong could be saved in that situation. But the impossible was right in front of him. After the shock, great remorse rose from the bottom of his heart. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He wanted to slap himself in the face immediately. A hero policeman who had arrested a suspect, and a dying patient who had been stabbed in the heart by a dagger. Rescuing a patient in this situation would undoubtedly become a great medical miracle and the focus of public opinion. No matter who completed such an operation, they would receive limitless glory and great praise. Money, fame, and everything else would be at their fingertips. All of this should have belonged to him. He was the attending doctor, but he was like a moron. He had repeatedly distanced himself from the operation and repeatedly stated that he would not take any responsibility. Now, the medical miracle and the doctor's honor had nothing to do with him. At this moment he really felt heartache. After being stunned for a long time, Lu Fei finally raised his hand and slapped himself in the face. Then he squatted in the corner and cried. What the hell was going on? Such a great merit was actually kicked away by him. Some people were happy, while others were sad. Nailan Wuxia, Wang Jianfeng, and others were happy that Feng Zixiong had been successfully rescued. Zhang Lijun was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. As a private hospital, Guangren Hospital had never been able to compete with large public hospitals, such as Jiangnan Hospital. However, with the success of this operation, the reputation of their hospital would be greatly enhanced in the future. It would also let people see the strength of their hospital. Dr. Feng, you did a good job. You are the pride of our hospital, Zhang Lijun said with a smile. From today on, you are officially the chief physician of the surgery department, and Lu Fei will be your assistant. After crying for a long time, Lu Fei's mood had just improved a little. When he heard this, he cried even more sadly. Damn it! Is there anything more painful than this? He went to complain about them, and finally got the dean to come. Instead of bringing down Feng Yuqi and Hua Ziyan, he lost his position as a chief physician. But before he finished crying, He heard Feng Yuqi say, "Thank you, Director, but I don't want to use him as my assistant. I don't feel comfortable with a doctor like him who has no patience in his eyes and can run away at any time on the operating table." Damn it! Lu Fei suddenly felt like he had been F***ed. He was also a dignified surgeon. An hour ago, he was still the director of surgery, but in the blink of an eye, he had fallen to the point where he could not even be used as an assistant. Was there anything more tragic than this? Zhang Lijun turned to look at Hua Ziyan and said, "Mr. Hua, you have done a lot of work this time. I misunderstood traditional Chinese medicine and treated the Department of Traditional Chinese Medicine poorly. From today on, the hospital will increase investment in the Department of Traditional Chinese Medicine, develop traditional Chinese medicine in our hospital, and strive to find an innovative way of combining traditional Chinese and Western medicine." Hua Ziyan's face was full of joy. His dream was to develop and strengthen the Department of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Now the day had finally come. He said, "Director, all the credit belongs to Dr. Tang. I dare not compete for it. Without his prescription, the operation would not have been successful." He looked back for Qin Haodong, but he didn't see him. Qin Haodong came to the hospital undercover. He didn't want to be in the limelight or take credit, so he naturally left. "Director, Dr. Tang seems to have left." Hua Ziyan couldn't help sighing. He has such good medical skills at such a young age, and the rarest thing is that he is not arrogant. "Director, Dr. Tang is definitely a talent of our hospital. You must keep him. I don't have many years to live. In the future, we will have to rely on young people like him to develop traditional Chinese medicine in our hospital." At this time, he already had the idea of training Qin Haodong as an heir. Zhang Lijun said in surprise, "Who is Dr. Tang? Why didn't I notice such an excellent talent before?" Hua Ziyan said, "Dr. Tang's name is Tang Feng. Today is his first day at work. He was introduced by Hao yesterday. He said he was his friend. Hao did a good job this time. He found a rare talent for our hospital." Hearing that this excellent Dr. Tang was found by his son, Zhang Lijun also showed a smile of relief and said, "I'll find time to talk to Dr. Tang in a few days." When things were done here, he took his people back to his office. Feng Zixiong was out of danger. Wang Jianfeng and Nailan Wuxia also left the hospital with their people, leaving only Feng Ziying. There was no clue about the serial murder case, and they still had a lot to do. Hua Ziyan hurried back to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic and saw Qin Haodong sitting in a chair, leisurely drinking tea. "Boy, why did you come back? Do you know how rare today's opportunity is? If you can get the appreciation of the director, then you will have a meteoric rise in our hospital in the future. Our traditional Chinese medicine clinic." Hua Ziyan was talking nonstop. Qin Haodong seemed to be prepared. He picked up a piece of A4 paper from the table and handed it to him, saying, "Old Hua, are you interested in the formula of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup?" Yes, I have it." At this time, Hua Ziyan's expression was like that of a prisoner who had been in prison for 10 years and suddenly saw a naked beauty. He stared at the formula in Qin Haodong's hand without blinking. Chapter 374. After witnessing the effect of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup with his own eyes, the old man, who had been pursuing traditional Chinese medicine all his life, was full of curiosity about the formula of this traditional Chinese medicine. However, this kind of secret formula was generally never leaked, so he was too embarrassed to ask Qin Haodong. Unexpectedly, Qin Haodong took the initiative to put the formula in front of him. For a moment, he couldn't believe the facts in front of him, and was not in the mood to think about anything else. "It's a gift for you." Qin Haodong waved his hand and gave the formula to Hua Ziyan. "Are you serious? You're not kidding?" Hua Ziyan's hands began to tremble as he held the formula. He knew very well the value of this formula, which could be said to be priceless in the eyes of some people. Of course it's true. Formulas are used to treat patients. Giving them to you will make full use of their value. That's great. Hua Ziyan held the formula and was extremely excited. "Mr. Hua, I'm giving you the formula. but don't spread it easily. Qin Haodong said. I'm not asking you to keep it a secret, but this formula is very special. Only people who know the mysteries of traditional Chinese medicine can decoct it. Like the little nurse today, the medicine she decocted not only cannot cure diseases, but will also harm people. Another thing to note is that the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup must be boiled and used immediately. If it gets cold, it can't be used again, which means that its validity period is less than an hour. Oh, I'll write it down. Although the requirements of this formula were very high, it was very effective, so Hua Ziyan was still very excited. He stared at the A4 paper without blinking, as if he wanted to engrave the formula in his mind. Just then Qin Haodong's phone rang. It was Nailan Wuxia. He knew that Nailan Wuxia would definitely tell him about today's case. Ignoring Hua Ziyan, who was almost crazy, he picked up the phone and answered it. After the phone was connected, Nailan Wuxia said, "Thank you. If it weren't for you, Feng Zixiong would have died today." "I'm a doctor. This is nothing." Qin Haodong asked. "What happened today? How could anyone be so seriously injured? Why did you send him to Guangren Hospital instead of Jiangnan Hospital, with better medical conditions?" Nailan Wuxia said, "Here's the thing. According to the plan we've made, all the police have begun to investigate suspects, focusing on groups such as Taoists, gods, and witches. According to the public, an old Taoist had suddenly appeared in a community not far from Guangren Hospital some time ago. The old Taoist had rented a house, but his behavior was very strange. He rarely went out. After receiving the news, Feng Zixiong felt that the old Taoist was very suspicious, so he brought another policeman to investigate. He did not expect to be attacked by the old Taoist as soon as he opened the door. Moreover, the old Taoist was extremely skilled. He casually stabbed a knife into Feng Zixiong's chest, and then ran away. Because Feng Zixiong was seriously injured, and the crime scene was the closest to Guangren Hospital, the situation was urgent, so he was sent there. "I see." Qin Haodong frowned, and his brain began to spin rapidly. When such a suspicious old Taoist suddenly appeared in the midst of successive murders, he was naturally very suspicious. He asked, "What does that old Taoist look like? Did he have any obvious characteristics?" Because the old Taoist was too fast, our people didn't see him clearly. They only know that the old Taoist looked not young, should be 60 or 70 years old, wearing a Taoist robe. Qin Haodong said, "It seems that the old Taoist is also a warrior. Inform your people to find his whereabouts again. Don't act rashly. Let's go and have a look together." "Yes, I've already passed the order," Nailan Wuxia said. "Now the old Taoist is very suspicious, but we can't confirm that he is the murderer of the murder. Maybe the murderer is someone else. How's the progress on your side? Have you found any suspicious people?" Qin Haodong said, "I checked the records of the archives of Guangren Hospital this morning. In the past month, there have been more than a dozen doctors who have inquired about information in the archives. At present, we can't further narrow the target. Half of the 3 days have passed. We have to hurry, or someone may be killed again." Nailan Wuxia said, "By the way, today the experts invited by the province conducted another autopsy on the body. They came to a new conclusion. Judging from the cut marks on the body, the murderer must be left-handed." "Left-handed?" Qin Haodong thought of something and said, "This clue is very valuable. With it, we can quickly check the dozen doctors. Whoever is left-handed is the most suspicious." Nailan Wuxia said, "You must be careful. Contact us if anything happens." Don't worry about my safety." Qin Haodong hung up the phone. As soon as he put away the phone, Hua Ziyan ran over, took the prescription of the pulse-warming and heart-nourishing soup, and asked all the questions in his mind. Qin Haodong had only respect for the old man who loved traditional Chinese medicine. He answered all of Hua Ziyan's questions without reservation. Soon, Hua Ziyan felt that he had almost finished his research. He ran into the pharmacy with the prescription and began to test the medicine. The whole traditional Chinese medicine clinic was left to Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong became the doctor on duty. He began to think about how to check the information of the doctors obtained in the archives and see the patients who came in from time to time. But by the time he got off work, he hadn't come up with a clue. He couldn't go from one clinic to another to see if the doctors were left-handed. This would inevitably arouse other people's suspicions and maybe alert the enemy. It was time to get off work. The hospital stopped registering, but Hua Zi was still in the pharmacy and had no intention of coming out. Qin Haodong didn't want to disturb him, so he changed his clothes and was about to leave. Just then a woman came in. The woman was about 30 years old and had very delicate facial features. She wore a pair of close-fitting jeans and a t-shirt, which outlined the perfect curve of her figure vividly. The woman glanced at Qin Haodong and said with a smile, "Dr. Tang, I want to invite you to dinner tonight. Is that okay?" "Invite me to dinner?" Qin Haodong looked at the woman again. She was vaguely familiar, but he had never seen this person in his memory. He asked, "Do we know each other?" Qin Haodong was really confused. The woman called him Dr. Tang. They should have just met today, but he really didn't remember where he had seen this woman. If she didn't know him, now that he had lost his handsome face, how could a beautiful woman take the initiative to invite him to dinner? The woman giggled, showing her white teeth, and said, "Dr. Tang, you forget that I'm Fang Yuqi." "Oh, Dr. Fang." Qin Haodong understood what was going on. When he was in the operating room, Fang Yuqi was wearing a white coat, a white hat, and a big mask on her face, with only her eyes exposed. This gave him a familiar feeling, but he couldn't figure out who it was. At the same time, he was slightly surprised that Fang Yuqi was such a beautiful woman. Fang Yuqi said, "Dr. Tang, you've helped me so much today. I want to invite you to dinner. Do you have time?" "This forget it. Actually, I didn't help much." Qin Haodong didn't want Tang Feng to meet too many people, so he refused directly. Fang Yuqi's eyes widened, obviously surprised. She usually refused other people's invitations. She didn't expect to be refused the first time. She took the initiative to invite someone to dinner. Oh, all right then. She was used to being proud and arrogant. After being refused, she didn't know what to say, so she turned to leave. Qin Haodong suddenly he thought of something. Fang Yuqi was a surgeon. She naturally knew which doctors in the hospital were left-handed. It was best to investigate from her without arousing others' suspicions. Thinking of this, he hurriedly cried, "Dr. Fang, wait a minute." Fang Yuqi turned around and looked at him in surprise. She didn't understand why he called her now that he had just refused her. Qin Haodong said, "Dr. Fang, you misunderstood me. In fact, I want to say that it's the first time we meet. How can a man like you treat me to dinner? It's my treat. Beautiful lady. What would you like to eat?" Fang Yuqi's face immediately eased a lot. Although Dr. Tang looked a little ordinary, he had good medical skills and knew how to behave. "You helped me. Of course it's my treat." She was in a good mood today as an attending doctor. The most important thing was that she would no longer have to be bullied by Lu Fei. In the past, Lu Fei was afraid that she would show her talent, so he suppressed her and never gave her a chance to show herself. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined that her dream would come true today, and the greatest contributor to all of this was Tang Feng before her. "Well, since Dr. Feng insists, I won't stand on ceremony." Air. Qin Haodong made 2 180-degree turns in a row, which made Fang Yuqi a little uncomfortable. Then she laughed again. It seemed that Dr. Tang was an interesting person. When they went out of the hospital gate, Fang Yuqi asked, "Dr. Tang, did you drive?" Qin Haodong laughed and said, "No, I can't afford a car as a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner." Dr. Tang is really good at joking. Who says traditional Chinese medicine practitioners have no money? I'm afraid the prescription you took out can buy countless cars. Fang Yuqi smiled, pointed to a champagne-colored Volvo next to her and said, "Then take my car." Qin Haodong got in the car and sat in the passenger seat. Fang Yuqi said, "Where are we going to eat?" "I don't know. I just came to Jiangnan, so I'm not familiar with the food there." He still played the role of Tang Feng dutifully. "In that case, let's go to eat seafood together. The seafood in Jiangnan is good," Qin Haodong said. "A guest should do as the host pleases." Fang Yuqi smiled and nodded, then started the car. Half an hour later, they came to a huge seafood building together. The name of this seafood building was also very special. It was called Shrimp Soldiers and Crab Generals. There were also 2 sculptures of shrimp soldiers and crab generals at the door, welcoming guests with charmingly naive expressions. It was midsummer, and seafood and beer were people's favorite delicacies, so the place was full of guests. When they entered the door, there were no private rooms, so they found a table in the hall and sat down. "What would you like to eat, sir and madam?" a waiter asked politely. Fang Yuqi said, "Dr. Tang, what would you like to eat?" Qin Haodong said, "I've never been to such a big seafood building. Miss Fang, just order whatever you want." Fang Yuqi didn't stand on ceremony anymore. She said to the waiter, "Bring us 4 of your signature dishes and a bottle of red wine." "Yes, madam. I'll arrange it for you right away." The waiter immediately wrote down the menu excitedly. Customers like this who didn't ask the price were definitely rich. The commission alone could make him a small profit. Chapter 375. Fang Yuqi said to Qin Haodong, "Dr. Tang, is this okay? It's not good to drink beer with seafood. As doctors, we should pay more attention to our health. Let's drink some red wine." "Okay, that's okay." Qin Haodong nodded. While they were ordering, a figure appeared at the door of the restaurant. It was Lu Fei, who had just lost his chief physician's hat today. What happened today made him very depressed. The general manager of this seafood restaurant was his old classmate, so he wanted to come over for a drink. He didn't expect to see Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi as soon as he entered the door. Bastards! After seeing these 2 people, Lu Fei gnashed his teeth in hatred. In his opinion, these 2 people had robbed him of his position as chief physician and came here to celebrate. When he heard Fang Yuqi order, Lu Fei sneered. He was worried about how to teach them a lesson, and now the opportunity had come. When the waiter came back, Lu Fei waved him over. Because Lu Fei was a regular here, the waiter knew that he was the general manager's classmate. He stepped forward and said politely, "Hello, Dr. Lu." Lu Fei asked, "What did the guest at that table order?" The waiter said, "The lady didn't say. She asked me to arrange 4 signature dishes and a bottle of red wine." "Well, listen to me and arrange it for them." After Lu Fei finished speaking, the waiter said with a surprised look, "Dr. Lu, according to the rules, we should show the guests after arranging the dishes. We can only order if the guests agree. The dishes you mentioned are too expensive. I guess the guests won't agree. Don't show them. Just order directly." The waiter hurriedly said, "I can't do that, Dr. Lu. If the guests don't pay the bill, I can't afford it even if I sell myself." Just then, a middle-aged man in a suit came over. When he saw Lu Fei, he patted him on the shoulder and said, "Doctor, why don't you go upstairs? What are you doing here?" This man was Song Wu, the general manager of the hotel. Lu Fei took Song Wu's arm and whispered, "Do you see those 2 people? They have a grudge against me. Now you have to help me." He gave a brief account of how he had lost the title of chief physician this afternoon. But in his words, Fang Yuqi had become a woman who had climbed into the bed of the director, and he had become a victim. Song Wu and Lu Fei were birds of a feather. He often asked Lu Fei to do things for him. At this time he patted his chest and said, "Brother, what do you need me to do?" "That's all you have to do." Lu Fei told him what he had told the waiter. After hearing this, Song Wu said with embarrassment, "Brother, is this okay? The things you mentioned add up to 300,000 to 400,000. What if they can't pay the bill? What should I do? I'm just the general manager of the hotel, not the boss. If that's the case, I'll be laid off. I still have a family to support." "Don't worry. That woman has just become the chief surgeon. I'll go with you to collect the debt later. She definitely won't make a big deal out of this. Otherwise, the whole hospital will know that she came here to eat and dash after becoming the chief surgeon. Besides, her family background is very good. She doesn't lack money, so she will definitely pay the bill." "Well, will this work?" Song Wu was still a little worried. "Why not? This will not only make them bleed, help me vent my anger, but also help you make a large commission." "What a good thing," Lu Fei said, taking out a golden bank card from his pocket. I have 500,000 in this card. If they don't pay, I'll pay for it. Is that okay? Song Wu immediately smiled and said, Brother, if you say so, then I have a plan. I'll go and arrange it now. Lu Fei looked back at Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi with a sneer. How dare you fight against me? I'll make you bleed first. At the table, Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi were talking happily. Qin Haodong came with a purpose. He asked, Dr. Fang, where did you graduate from? How many years have you been in Guangren Hospital? Fang Yuqi said, I'm a doctor of medicine who came back from studying in M country. As of this summer, I've been in Guangren Hospital for 3 years. A doctor of medicine from M country should be very popular in Huaxia. Why did you come to Guangren Hospital? Didn't you consider a large public hospital like Jiangnan Hospital? When I came back, I also received an invitation from a public hospital, but I felt that the interpersonal relationships in public hospitals were too complicated. There were many other factors besides medical skills, so I chose Guangren Hospital. Fang Yuqi smiled bitterly. Later, I learned that seniority and interpersonal relationships are the national conditions of Huaxia. This situation exists in both public and private hospitals, so I've been Lu Fei's assistant for 3 years. Qin Haodong nodded and said, in terms of salary, private hospitals should be a little better than public hospitals, right? Fang Yuqi said, not bad. My annual salary is 300,000, which is a lot compared to ordinary people. But people who study medicine pay a lot. My classmates are already mothers of 2 children, and I'm still an old girl who can't get married. Qin Haodong laughed and said, in fact, it's not your fault. You're too good. You have a high education and are beautiful. Ordinary people really can't muster up the courage to pursue you. For example, I can only look up to a beautiful woman like you. While they were talking, the waiter brought up the dishes one by one. Then he took a bottle of wine with English letters on it and said, would you like to open the red wine? Fang Yuqi was sighing with emotion at what Qin Haodong had just said. She said carelessly, open it. The waiter opened the red wine with a bang. Qin Haodong looked at him in surprise and said, what's wrong with you? Why are your hands shaking? The waiter said nervously, no, it's nothing. Maybe the air conditioner here is too high. After that, he poured red wine into their glasses and hurried away. Although the waiter's behavior was a little abnormal, Qin Haodong didn't care about the serial murders and continued to chat with Fang Yuqi. He picked up his glass and said, congratulations on your promotion to chief physician. Fang Yuqi raised her glass and gently touched Qin Haodong's. Thank you. Qin Haodong's heart skipped a beat. Fang Yuqi was holding the glass with her left hand, which showed that she was left-handed. Putting down his glass, Qin Haodong said, Dr. Fang, you are left-handed. I heard that left-handed people have an advantage in many industries, such as table tennis and badminton, which make it difficult for opponents to guard against. I wonder if being a doctor has an advantage in this respect? Fang Yuqi took a sip of red wine and said, it's not an advantage, but it's not inconvenient. It's the same with the left hand and the right hand. The key is your level of surgery. Seeing that the conversation was almost over, Qin Haodong began to slowly get to the point. In our hospital, are there many doctors who operate with their left hand like you? Fang Yuqi didn't think much about it. She just thought Qin Haodong was chatting casually. She said, not too many. I'm left-handed, so is Lu Fei. There is also Dr. Zhang Yang, who is about to retire, but he is old now and does very few operations. Qin Haodong went through the list of names he had obtained from the archives in his mind. There was no doctor named Zhang Yang on it. Now the scope of targets was rapidly narrowing down to Lu Fei and Fang Yuqi. He just needed to check them out. While he was thinking about the case, Fang Yuqi said, Dr. Tang, who did you learn your medical skills from? Family heirloom. I learned it from my grandfather when I was a child. Fang Yuqi said, I didn't have much contact with traditional Chinese medicine before. In M country, the idea I received was that traditional Chinese medicine was unscientific, and that traditional Chinese medicine practitioners were liars. But today, I saw the magic of traditional Chinese medicine from you. This is a field that Western medicine can't get involved in. Then they ate and chatted. Through the conversation, Qin Haodong felt that Fang Yuqi was kind and straightforward. Not like a murderer, but it was hard to say. Maybe she hid it well enough. About 2 hours later, when they were almost finished, Fang Yuqi raised her hand and called the waiter over. "Bill, please." Then she took out her wallet to pay. Qin Haodong didn't say anything. It wasn't that he was stingy. It was not cheap to eat in such a seafood restaurant. And he was just a small traditional Chinese medicine practitioner now. It was better not to rush to pay the bill, or it would easily arouse suspicion. "Okay," the waiter said. "Miss, you spent 408,000 yuan in total. The manager said that you can pay 400,000 yuan. What the hell? I spent more than 400,000 yuan on 4 dishes. This hotel is so rip-off." Qin Haodong understood why the waiter was trembling when he opened the wine. It turned out that he was nervous or excited before ripping people off. Fang Yuqi was also shocked. Although she had a good financial condition, it didn't mean that she had no bottom line. She couldn't be ripped off in confusion. "Did you make a mistake? We only had 4 dishes. How could it cost so much? 4 dishes cost more than 400,000 yuan. Are you running a black shop?" Hearing the conversation between him and the waiter, the guests at the next tables all looked this way. 4 dishes cost more than 400,000 yuan, which was really scary. The waiter took the menu and said, "Miss, we are not a black shop. The prices are clearly marked. Look, what you have eaten is the most valuable thing in our shop." Seeing that Fang Yuqi ignored his bill, the waiter read it directly. "What you have eaten is crocodile tail stew, 28,000 yuan per dish. Wild yellow croaker, 16,000 yuan per caddy. Yours is 3 caddies and 2 tails. This bottle of red wine is 15-year-old gold Romani Conti, 200,000 yuan per bottle, a total of 408,000 yuan. Our goods are genuine. Even if you sue us to the Bureau of Commodity Prices, we won't be afraid." The matter had been made clear. On the contrary, the waiter was confident. If the business was done, he would also get a good commission. Fang Yuqi said with a cold face, "I just asked you to arrange 4 signature dishes. Are these the signature dishes of your hotel? How many people in Jiangnan City can afford to eat such dishes? Besides, shouldn't you let me have a look before you place the order? Shouldn't you ask for my opinion in advance, before you spend 400,000 yuan?" The others also talked about it. "Yes, why don't you tell people in advance when you sell such expensive things? This is a disguised ripoff. It's a fraud. 400,000 yuan for a meal is enough for an ordinary person to eat for a lifetime." The waiter was already mentally prepared. He put on a helpless face and said, "Miss, you asked me to arrange the dishes. I have already asked for your opinion before opening the wine. You asked me to open it. Don't tell me you don't have money to pay the bill and want to dine and dash? Who wants to dine and dash?" While talking, Song Wu and Lu Fei came together. The waiter pointed to Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi and said, "Manager, it's them. They don't pay for the meal." Chapter 376. Lu Fei glanced at Fang Yuqi and said sarcastically, "Isn't this Dr. Fang? How did you learn to dine and dash as soon as you were promoted to director of surgery?" "It's you. What are you doing here?" Fang Yuqi was still a little surprised that Lu Fei would show up at this time. When Qin Haodong saw Lu Fei appear with the people from the hotel, he knew that today's incident must have been caused by this guy. Lu Fei said with a sinister smile, "Of course I'm here to eat. I didn't expect to see Director Fang dine and dash. What a surprise." Song Wu stepped forward and said, "Madam, I'm the general manager of the seafood restaurant. Please pay the bill." Fang Yuqi said, "I can't pay for this. Your service is not transparent at all. The meal costs 400,000 yuan, and you didn't ask for our permission before you served it." Song Wu sneered and said, "Miss, you arranged the dishes, and you agreed to open the wine. If you are dissatisfied, you can complain, but now you have to pay the bill." Fang Yuqi blushed and said, I did ask the waiter to arrange the dishes, but you should have told me when you arranged such expensive dishes, right? And the bottle of wine just asked me if I could open it. It didn't tell me its price at all." Lu Fei said with a smile. Director Fong, it's natural to pay for the meal. You've just become a director, and you're eating and dashing here. If your colleagues in the hospital know tomorrow, it will have a bad influence on you. At this time, Fong Yuqi also realized the seriousness of the problem. If this matter got out, everyone would think that she didn't pay for the meal, and no one would listen to her explanation. Anyway, she was a woman, and she had just been promoted. This would be a devastating blow to her reputation. As if reading her mind, Song-woo said, Madam, pay the bill quickly, or I'll call the police. 400,000 yuan is enough for the police to file a case. This once again hit the nail on the head of Fong Yuqi. She really couldn't afford to be taken to the police station for not paying for the meal. At this point, she could only accept it. She took out a bank card from her pocket and said, I only brought 200,000 yuan today. I can write you an IOU for the rest and send it to you later. Song-woo was happy. It seemed that his old classmate was right. This woman finally chose to cherish her reputation and keep the peace. With such a big order, his bonus this month would surely be increased. I'm sorry, miss. Our hotel doesn't take credit. Let's see if he can pay the rest of the bill. Fong Yuqi said. No, it's my treat today, and I ordered the dishes. It has nothing to do with him. Don't worry. I'll send you the rest of the money tomorrow. Qin Haodong nodded in his heart. From this point of view, it could be seen that Fong Yuqi's character was still good. She would rather bear all the consequences than let herself suffer losses. From this point of view, he had to help her. You can't do that. Fong Yuqi didn't expect Lu Fei to be so insidious. Her face turned pale. If Zhang Lijun found out about this, it would definitely have a very bad influence on her. She couldn't afford to lose face. There's nothing wrong with that. You are the director's employee, and the newly promoted director. It's normal for him to care about you. After Lu Fei finished speaking, he burst into laughter again. He was extremely carefree, as if he had vented all the pent-up anger in his heart. After laughing, he took out his cell phone and was about to call Zhang Lijun. Fong Yuqi's face was pale. She didn't want this to happen, but she couldn't stop it. At this time, she was full of regret. Why had she been so careless today? She should have ordered the meal herself. Just when she was at a loss, she heard Qin Haodong say, Wait a minute. Lu Fei looked up at Qin Haodong and said disdainfully, What, do you want to pay the bill? In his opinion, Qin Haodong was a Chinese medicine practitioner, and his clothes were less than 1,000 yuan. How could he have 200,000 yuan? I don't have that much money. Lu Fei's expression was even more disdainful. Don't talk if you don't have money. Do you want to show off because Director Fong is beautiful? I tell you, not everyone can be a hero and save the beauty. You have to have money in your pocket. A poor man like you should go back to sleep as soon as possible. Qin Haodong didn't care, as if he hadn't heard his sarcasm, and said, I really don't have money, but isn't Dr. Lu rich? Lu Fei glanced at him and sneered. I do have money, but it has nothing to do with you. Of course it has something to do with you. Qin Haodong looked at Lu Fei with an imperceptible light in his eyes. He directly used mind manipulating. Since this guy wanted to play dirty, let's see who could win. He continued. With your ability, you wouldn't have been able to perform the surgery today. At least, you wouldn't have been able to save the patient. At the critical moment, it was Dr. Fong who stepped forward and helped you get through this difficult situation. She saved your face. Shouldn't you thank her? Fong Yuqi didn't know why Qin Haodong suddenly mentioned this. It was like a slap in the face to Lu Fei, adding fuel to the fire. But to her surprise, Lu Fei didn't get angry. On the contrary, he nodded very cooperatively and said, Yes, I really should thank Dr. Fong. That's right. A man should be grateful. Otherwise, what's the difference between him and an animal? Qin Haodong said with a smile. Since you're grateful, you should show some sincerity. You'll pay for Dr. Fong's meal today. Do you have any problem with that? No problem. No problem. Dr. Fong has helped me so much. It's only right for me to invite him to dinner. After he said this, not only Fong Yuqi looked as if she had seen an alien, but even Song Woo was stunned. Wasn't his old classmate going to mess with these two people? Why did his attitude suddenly change 180 degrees, and he began to please the other party? Regardless of what they thought, Lu Fei directly took the bank card out of his pocket, handed it to Song Wu and said, "I'll pay for Dr. Fang's meal. Now pay by card." Song Wu didn't know what was wrong with Lu Fei. He whispered in his ear, "Are you crazy? This is 400,000 yuan. It's not a small amount." Lu Fei said carelessly, "Dr. Fang helped me save face today. She's like a second parent to me. It's natural for me to pay for her. Cut the crap and swipe the card." Song Wu was stunned, but he couldn't refuse to accept the bill. Seeing Lu Fei's firm attitude, he could only hand the card to the waiter next to him and let him pay by card. Soon, the waiter came back with the bill and handed it to Fang Yuqi. Qin Haodong said with a smile, "Dr. Lu paid for it. Keep the bill for him as a souvenir." After that, he handed the bill to Lu Fei. Lu Fei took the bill and said gratefully, "Thank you, Dr. Tang. Thank you for giving me a chance to express my gratitude today. And thank you, Dr. Fang, for helping me so much today." Fang Yuqi was completely dumbfounded and thought to herself, "Crazy, Lu Fei is completely crazy." Qin Haodong patted Lu Fei on the shoulder and said as if praising a child, "You did a good job today. Remember, you must learn to be grateful." "Sure, I'll work hard in the future." Lu Fei's face was full of flattery. Song Wu couldn't bear to look at that dirty look and got goosebumps. "Let's go." With that, Qin Haodong took Fang Yuqi, who was puzzled, out of the restaurant. When they got in the car, Fang Yuqi was still in a daze and hadn't come to her senses. Qin Haodong smiled and said, "Dr. Fang, can you still drive?" Fang Yuqi patted her towering chest, pulled herself together and said, "Dr. Tang, what's going on? Why did Lu Fei suddenly pay for us? Is he out of his mind?" Qin Haodong laughed and said, "Who knows? Maybe he found his conscience, or maybe, as you said, he's out of his mind. But how is that possible? That's 400,000 yuan. Fang Yuqi still felt that her brain was not enough. "It's nothing. Maybe Dr. Lu is rich and rich people are capricious." Qin Haodong said jokingly, "Hurry up and drive home. If Dr. Lu regrets it, it will be troublesome." Fang Yuqi shook her head, but there was nothing she could do. She started the car and drove forward. Qin Haodong said again, "Dr. Fang, how much money can Lu Fei make a year? How can he be so generous as to give 400,000 yuan so easily?" Fang Yuqi had almost recovered. She said, "Lu Fei's salary is higher than mine, about 500,000 yuan a year. That's a good income, but he's a gambler. I heard that he lost all his money a few years ago and used his house to pay off his gambling debts. But since last year, I don't know why he suddenly became rich. He not only bought a new mansion, but also spent lavishly. I don't know how he got the money." "Oh." Qin Haodong nodded but said nothing more. "Dr. Tang, where are you going?" Fang Yuqi asked. "Take me back to the hospital. I'll stay in the hotel across the street." Soon, Fang Yuqi drove Qin Haodong to the gate of Guangren Hospital, and then drove home alone. Qin Haodong didn't go back to the hotel. Lu Fei was getting more and more suspicious. He had read the files, performed surgery with his left hand, and suddenly became rich a year ago. He could give 400,000 yuan casually, which greatly increased the possibility that he was the murderer. He had to find out. Shortly after Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi left, Lu Fei's body suddenly shook slightly, and his eyes returned to normal. He turned to Song Wu and said, "Brother, what did I just do? What's wrong with you today? You're acting strangely. Don't you know what you just did?" Song Wu said, "Are you bewitched today?" Originally, he had said that he would ruthlessly scam that little girl. But not long after, he had to pay for her bill himself? "Tell me, is there something wrong with your head? You can't do that even if you want to hit on her. Can you?" Before Song Wu could finish, Lu Fei said in shock, "What did you say? I paid for Fang Yuqi?" "Yes, you paid 400,000 yuan for her. And then you said thank you to her." Lu Fei grabbed him by the shoulder, his eyes almost bulging out. Are you serious? Are you sure you're not kidding me? I really paid 400,000 yuan for them? Of course it's true. I'm not kidding. The bill is still in your pocket." Lu Fei took out the $400,000 bill from his pocket and roared crazily, Song Woo, why didn't you stop me? This is $400,000. I can't wait to kill them both. Why should I pay them? Chapter 377. No wonder he was so angry. Although he had some money now, 400,000 yuan was not a small amount. What's more, he had set up a trap for Qin Haodong and Fang Yuqi, but in the end he paid the bill himself. What was going on? Wasn't he playing with himself? Song Woo said innocently. Can you blame me for this? You insisted on paying, and I couldn't stop you. Who knows what's wrong with you? 400,000 yuan. That's 400,000 yuan. Lu Fei was so distressed that he grabbed Song Woo and said, Old classmate, you're my brother, aren't you? You'll get the money back to me when I pay it to your hotel, right? Song Woo pushed him away and said, Are you kidding me? Although we have a good relationship, the 400,000 yuan is in the hotel's account. How can I give it back to you casually? The boss checks the account every week. If there's a gap of 400,000 yuan, it's not a small amount. How can I explain it to the boss? That is to say, you can't give the money back to me? Lu Fei cried with bloodshot eyes. Of course not. You paid the bill yourself. Can you blame anyone else? Song Woo was getting angrier and angrier. You didn't listen to me just now, and now you're asking me for money. How can there be such a good thing? Bastard, how dare you cheat me of my money? Lu Fei had lost his mind. He raised his hand and punched Song Woo in the face, giving him a panda eye. How dare you hit me, bastard? Song Woo was a short and fat man. His body had been hollowed out by wine and women over the years. He was no match for Lu Fei, but he had a large number of security guards. Come on, throw this bastard out of here. Although the security guards didn't know why the manager had suddenly quarreled with Lu Fei, they didn't hesitate when they heard the order. They swarmed Lu Fei to the ground, and then carried him out of the hotel gate. It was a heavy fall. Lu Fei struggled for a long time before he got up. He turned to the hotel and scolded, Song Woo, wait for me. At this time, he slowly calmed down and recalled what had just happened in the hotel. Why did he suddenly lose his mind? Why did he rush to pay for Fang Yuqi? Could it be that he was really possessed? Just as he was thinking about this, the phone in his pocket suddenly rang. He took out his phone and glanced at the phone number on it. His expression changed slightly, and then he pressed the answer button. A deep voice came from the other side of the phone. Old place, hurry over. There's a big deal to be done. Lu Fei said, Can't we do it another day? I have something on my hands today. First, he lost his position as the director. Then he lost 400,000 yuan. Then he was taught a lesson by the hotel's security. He was in a terrible mood. Absolutely not. You must come here immediately. I don't know what's wrong with the police these days. They've almost turned the whole Jiangnan city upside down. Once they find out our secrets, not only will I be finished, but you will also be in trouble. I've just contacted the buyer, and he'll come over tonight to collect the goods. So, we have to finish this business and send the goods away. Then we can enjoy our lives in peace. After listening to him, Lu Fei also knew that this matter had to be done. So he said, I'll go there now. After hanging up the phone, he drove his BMW straight out of the suburbs, but he didn't notice that a black shadow appeared behind him. Lu Fei drove out of the city and came to an abandoned dock by the sea. He parked the car, looked around vigilantly, and then walked into the dock. This used to be a dock in Jiangnan City. Later, it was abandoned for some reason and had been idle here for many years. Because it was too desolate, few people came here on weekdays. Lu Fei came to an inconspicuous small house next to the dock. He raised his hand and knocked on the door 3 times. He paused for 2 seconds, then knocked twice, and then knocked 4 times in succession. After knocking, he quietly waited in front of the door. After about 10 seconds, the door slowly opened a gap. A bald head poked out and asked, Who is it? Why are you knocking on the door in the middle of the night? It's me, Lu Fei said as he turned his head to let the man see his face clearly. After seeing Lu Fei's face, the bald man immediately smiled and said familiarly, It's Dr. Lu. Coming quickly. The boss has been waiting for you for a long time. After that, He opened the door, let Lu Fei in, and then closed the door with a bang. Inside the room, there were already several people holding guns, staring at the door with great vigilance. When they saw that it was Lu Fei, they all put away their guns. "Dr. Lu, please come with me." The bald man took Lu Fei directly to the inner room, then patted the side. The ground slowly cracked, revealing an underground passage. The two of them walked down the passageway, and it was a completely different world inside. It was about 200 or 300 square meters, very spacious, and extremely luxuriously decorated. A fat man, who weighed 200 kilograms, was sitting on a comfortable leather sofa and slowly drinking red wine. He was the boss here, Fat Dragon. Although this guy looked white and fat, like a Maitreya Buddha, his means were extremely cruel. He specialized in the sale of human organs. After seeing Lu Fei, Fat Dragon nodded with a smile and said, "Dr. Lu, the situation is urgent. We have to hurry. I don't know what's wrong with the police recently. They are investigating more and more closely. I heard that they are looking for a Taoist priest, but it's not good for us. It won't be long before they find us. So we have to finish this business as soon as possible, then leave Jiangnan City and hide for a few days. I have just informed the buyer. They will send someone to pick up the goods in 2 hours, which means you have 2 hours. You have to finish the work as soon as possible." Lu Fei nodded and asked, "How many more do I need to deal with?" "There are 3 in total. At your speed, you should be able to finish them in less than 2 hours." Fat Dragon stood up and pushed open a door next to him. Inside was a fully equipped operating room. There were 3 people tied on the ground next to it. 2 of them were middle-aged men who looked like vagrants, and the other was a little girl of 5 or 6 years old. They were looking at them in horror. Lu Fei frowned and asked, "Fat Dragon, why are there children?" Fat Dragon glanced at him and said with a smile, "Why? Dr. Lu, you don't have the heart, do you? Over the years, you have removed at least 80 organs, if not 100. One more child won't make a difference." He walked over, patted the little girl's cheek and said, "You don't know, this child is custom-made. She is very valuable. Even 10 adults can't compare to her. There is a rich man's daughter in the Middle East who has a serious liver disease and needs a liver transplant. She is about the same age as this child, so he offered us 10 million to buy a matching liver. Remember, it's in US dollars. For this business, we spent a lot of effort and checked a lot of information. Only from a physical examination report did we know that this child's liver was very suitable for the rich man's daughter, so we found an opportunity to kidnap her." Lu Fei's face showed a trace of pity and he said, "But," the smile on Fat Dragon's face suddenly disappeared. He interrupted him and said, "No buts. If I hadn't helped you change your master, your hands would have been cut off. How can you be a doctor? How can you support yourself?" After taking a breath, his voice softened a lot, and he said with great vicissitudes, "Although we killed a person here, we also saved a person over there. From this point of view, it's not a sin. As long as this business is done, according to the 10% commission, you can get a benefit of $1 million, which is enough for you to live happily for a while. After so many years, I'm also tired. After this business, I'm going to wash my hands of it completely. I'm going to South Africa with my brothers to buy a piece of land and be happy as a farmer." Lu Fei hesitated for a moment. Thinking of the colorful US dollars, he didn't speak in the end. "Well, doctor, hurry up. We don't have much time." Fat Dragon waved his hand, and 2 people immediately came over. They threw the little girl on the operating table like goods, took off her coat, and fixed her hands and feet on the special steel rings of the operating table. The little girl's face was full of horror. She struggled desperately, but her body was too weak to play any role at all. Lu Fei walked to the operating table and looked at the little girl. Then he sighed, took a white towel, grabbed a bottle of pink medicine, and poured it on the towel. Then he covered the little girl's mouth with his hand. This was a strong anesthetic. After about a minute, the little girl completely lost consciousness and lay on the operating table, as if she was asleep. Lu Fei opened the operating box next to him and took out a shiny scalpel. After a moment of hesitation, He inserted it into the little girl's chest. At this moment, the door was kicked open from the outside. Then there was a flash of cold light. Lu Fei's left hand holding the scalpel felt cold, and then it fell to the ground with a clatter. My hand, my golden left hand. Lu Fei held the elbow of his left hand with his right hand. Looking at the left hand, that was still holding the scalpel on the ground, he howled wildly. It could be said that this left hand was everything to him. After losing his left hand, he would have no value. People like you don't deserve to be doctors, let alone to hold a scalpel. Seeing that this animal was going to kill a little girl, Qin Haodong was furious. He waved the 1,000 blades again. Lu Fei screamed, and his right hand fell to the ground. Fat Dragon reacted and hurriedly shouted to his men, kill him for me." Several thugs in the room took out their pistols, but before they could pull the trigger, the pistols had fallen to the ground along with their hands. In such a small space, the 1,000 blades was 100 times faster than they could shoot. In the blink of an eye, these people's hands were cut off, including Fat Dragon's 2 fat pig hands. After Qin Haodong parted ways with Fang Yuqi, he had been quietly following Lu Fei. Soon after Lu Fei came in, he killed the people outside. Originally, he wanted to wait for Nalan Wuxia, but when he saw that Lu Fei was going to kill an innocent little girl, he had to take the lead. At this time, there was a noisy sound of footsteps outside. Nalan Wuxia rushed in with a team of policemen. Looking at the fallen arms and the wailing people, she asked, "Haodong, what's going on?" After a brief introduction of the situation, Qin Haodong pointed to Lu Fei and said, "As a doctor, he participated in human organ trafficking, and his hands were stained with blood. Now it seems that he is the biggest suspect. He is probably the killer behind the serial murders." Chapter 378. At this time, Lu Fei's arms were bleeding. He was in so much pain that he almost fainted. He wailed and could not care about anything else. Nalan Wuxia looked at the people present and said to Qin Haodong, "Stop their bleeding first, or it will be troublesome if they die." Qin Haodong raised his hand and poked several acupoints on Lu Fei's shoulders. His arms immediately stopped bleeding, and then he helped Fat Dragon, and the others stopped bleeding. At this time, a policeman who had searched the room ran over and said, "Captain, we found a lot of living organs in the incubator, including hearts and livers. There are about 20 pieces." Nalan Wuxia said, "Immediately organize people to send these organs to the hospital for preservation. Take the victims to the police station first and arrest all the criminals." He pointed to Fat Dragon and said, "This is the chief criminal. He and Lu Fei stay and ask about it." Nalan Wuxia nodded and arranged for all the thugs under Fat Dragon to be taken away. Only Fat Dragon and Lu Fei were left in the room. Time was urgent, so Qin Haodong did not talk nonsense with them. He directly used mind manipulating and asked Fat Dragon, "Did you do the murders in Jiangnan City a few days ago?" Hearing his question, Nalan Wuxia immediately became nervous. After so many days of work, there was not much progress in the case. If it was really Fat Dragon and his people who did it, they would finally have an explanation for the general public. But Fat Dragon shook his head and said, "I don't know what you are talking about, but we have never done it in Jiangnan City." Qin Haodong frowned and asked, "If you have never done it in Jiangnan City, where did these organs come from?" Fat Dragon said, "We do human organs. But in order to keep things secret, we never commit crimes in Jiangnan City. These people are all caught from other places. Their organs are cut in Jiangnan City, and then sold abroad by sea." Soon it was clear that Fat Dragon and his people were a very well-organized criminal gang. They specialized in human organs. It was a business deal, and the method used to commit the crime was very clever. First of all, they did not commit crimes locally. They all caught some homeless people or people with mental disabilities from other places. After taking them to Jiangnan City, they cut their bodies and sold them directly abroad by sea. Lu Fei was the doctor in charge of the surgery. Every time he completed an operation, he would be given a 10% commission. Since the method of committing the crime is very secretive, it hasn't been discovered by the relevant departments for a long time. Nalan Wuxia and Qin Haodong were disappointed when they heard that these people were not the murderers of the serial murders. But when they thought about it, they had solved such a big case of organ trafficking. Qin Haodong continued to ask, "Where are the people whose organs were cut off by you?" Fat Dragon said, "In order to prevent the matter from being exposed, those who had their organs cut off were directly handed over to the people who picked up the goods, and then thrown into the sea to feed the fish. Bastard! For the sake of money, he would even do such a crazy thing." Nalan Wuxia slapped Fat Dragon in the face and called 2 policemen to take him away. She also wanted to use Fat Dragon as bait to catch all the criminals who were waiting to pick up the goods. Qin Haodong walked up to Lu Fei and said in a cold voice, "As a director of surgery, you even did such a thing. Are you still worthy of being called a doctor?" At this time, Qin Haodong had returned to his original appearance. He was not the image of Tang Feng, so Lu Fei did not recognize who he was. He thought he was a plainclothes policeman of the police force. He said, "I had no choice. A few years ago, I lost all my property in gambling and owed millions of yuan in debt. If I didn't pay the money back, those people would cut off my hands. Later, Fat Dragon and others paid the debt for me, so I followed them." Qin Haodong used mind manipulating again and asked, "Do you know about the murders that happened in Jiangnan City a few days ago? Does it have anything to do with you?" Lu Fei shook his head and said, "I don't know. I didn't do it." "Then why did you go to the archives of Guangren Hospital to look up the patient's files? Does it have anything to do with organ trafficking?" Lu Fei said, "It doesn't matter. It's a normal job. Although working with Fat Dragon and others can bring me a lot of income, I still need a formal job to deceive people, so that I won't be suspected." Qin Haodong looked back at Nalan Wuxia and said, "It seems that Lu Fei didn't do it. It has nothing to do with him?" Speaking of this, his heart sank. There were 2 key suspects before. One was Lu Fei, and the other was Fang Yuqi. Now that Lu Fei had been ruled out, there was only Fang Yuqi left. From the bottom of his heart, he really didn't want this beautiful female doctor to be the murderer. Nalan Wuxia asked someone to take Lu Fei away and then said, "It's nothing. At least we also solved a big case this time. We got rid of a gang that sold human organs. These people have done so many atrocious things. The seriousness of the case is much greater than a murder case." Qin Haodong said, "There is still a day left tomorrow. Let's focus on Fang Yuqi. I really hope she didn't do it." Nalan Wuxia said, "Why? Is it because she is beautiful?" "No matter how beautiful she is she more beautiful than you?" Qin Haodong smiled at Nalan Wuxia and then said seriously, "I don't want it to be her, because I think she is a good doctor." Nalan Wuxia was just about to speak when her cell phone suddenly rang. After answering the phone, her expression changed greatly. She said to Qin Haodong, "Oh no, the 4th murder has happened." Qin Haodong was also shocked and said, "How could it be so fast? Shouldn't there be a day left?" Nalan Wuxia said, "A crime every 3 days is just our speculation based on the previous time. It seems that the speculation is wrong. The criminals don't commit crimes according to this rule." Qin Haodong said, "Let's go and have a look. Maybe we can find clues to solve the case." Nalan Wuxia divided the criminal police force into 2 parts. One part waited for the organ trafficking gang to pick up the goods, and the other part hurried to the crime scene with them. It was nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. When they arrived at the scene, the police in the area had already pulled up the cordon to protect the scene. The crime scene was a large hardware store. The store owner, who was about 50 years old, was shivering next to it. His face was pale, and it seemed that he was really scared. The 2 of them stated their identities and entered the cordon. The strong smell of blood assaulted their nostrils, and they saw a young man in his 30s lying in a pool of blood. There was a large hole in his chest, and the forensic doctor was busy performing an autopsy. Nalan Wuxia asked, "What's going on?" The forensic doctor looked up and saw that the captain had arrived. He said, "It's not much different from the previous cases, and the method is basically the same. But this time, the victim's lungs were lost. The estimated time of death was 2 hours ago." "That son of a b***tch. Nalan Wuxia cursed angrily. But she couldn't lose her mind at this time. She turned around and asked the police on duty. Who called the police? Who saw the first scene? It was me. The store owner walked over, trembling. Nalan Wuxia said, Don't be afraid. Give me a brief introduction of the situation. The store owner said, Many relatives came to my hometown today. After dinner, I didn't have enough room at home, so I was going to spend the night in the store. I didn't expect that as soon as I opened the door, I would see a dead man on the ground. There was blood all over the ground. I was scared to death, so I called the police immediately. What about the time? How long has it been since the police called the police? The store owner took out his mobile phone, looked at it and said, About an hour now. At this time, Qin Haodong also finished checking the scene. There was a bright red soul-calming talisman drawn on the floor tile about half a meter above the dead man's head. Similarly, there was no soul under the soul-calming talisman. After Nalan Wuxia learned about the situation, she immediately issued an order to quickly check the surveillance videos in the store, and within a radius of 500 meters, focusing on the suspects within the last 2 hours. The store owner said, There is a surveillance camera in my store. In order to prevent thieves, I installed a super high-definition camera with night vision function. Nalan Wuxia said eagerly, Take us to have a look. The store owner took Nalan Wuxia and the others to his room. When they opened the door, they saw that the computer on the table had been broken into pieces. The main case was opened, and the hard disk used to store the surveillance video data was removed. It seems that the perpetrator was prepared in this regard and took all the surveillance data away. At this time, a technician came over with a laptop. Captain, I have connected to the surveillance website of the Municipal Public Security Bureau. I can access the surveillance information of the cameras of the Municipal Public Security Bureau at any time. There is a surveillance point opposite the hardware store that we set up. Quick, show me the data. Nalan Wuxia said eagerly. Although the data from the surveillance point of the Municipal Public Security Bureau could only show the outside scene, it could always check whether there were any suspicious people passing by. The technician turned on the computer and retrieved the data stored in the surveillance video opposite the hardware store. Soon, the video began to play. Since the selected time period started at midnight, there were few pedestrians and vehicles on the street. In order to save time, Nalan Wuxia directly asked the technician to speed up the video to 10 times faster. The video continued to play, and soon a figure flashed across the screen. Qin Haodong suddenly, his face changed and he cried, Stop, it's here. Slow down the speed and replay. The technician turned the picture back, and a woman slowly appeared on the screen. It was Fang Yuqi, who had just broken up with him. At this time, Fang Yuqi was no longer as calm and composed as she had been during the day. She was holding a black bag in her hand, looking flustered and in a hurry. Soon she disappeared from the camera. Qin Haodong's heart sank. What he had been worried about had happened. Lu Fei's suspicion had been ruled out, and Fang Yuqi happened to appear near the scene of the crime. Now it seemed that she was probably the murderer. Nalan Wuxia was obviously aware of this. She and Qin Haodong looked at each other and nodded. Nalan Wuxia turned to his men and said, Fang Yuqi is a doctor from Guangren Hospital. Let the technical department locate her immediately and arrest her. Fang Yuqi's phone number had been filed with the technical department, and her location was soon locked. About half an hour later, she was taken to the interrogation room of the criminal police unit. Qin Haodong had changed his face and sat with Nalan Wuxia in the interrogation position. Fang Yuqi was sitting on an iron stool. Her face was pale and flustered. Her long white dress was torn in several places, and there were dark red bloodstains on it. Nalan Wuxia looked at her and asked, Dr. Fang, I didn't expect to meet you here again. Fang Yuqi just looked at Nalan Wuxia with a complicated expression and said nothing. Nalan Wuxia asked, Tell me, what did you do about an hour ago? I. Fang Yuqi struggled for a while and cried, Officer Nalan, I surrender. Chapter 379. Hearing her words, Nalan Wuxia's expression suddenly changed, and her heart beat wildly. She asked again, "Are you sure you did this case?" "I did it, but Officer Nalan." Fang Yuqi was about to say something when the door of the interrogation room opened. A scout came in from the outside and put a transparent plastic bag on the interrogation room table. There was a scalpel in it, with some dried blood on it. The investigator said, "Captain, this was found in her house." Qin Haodong sighed inwardly. The bloody clothes, the bloody scalpel, and Fang Yuqi's confession had basically locked in the facts of the case. It seemed that she really did it. Of the two surgical directors of Guangren Hospital, Lu Fei went astray because of gambling, and Fang Yuqi killed people for unknown reasons. Nalan Wuxia lifted the plastic bag and asked, "Is this yours?" Fang Yuqi nodded. "It's mine." Nalan Wuxia asked, "Did you kill them with this knife?" "What? He's dead?" Fang Yuqi panicked again and cried, "Impossible, it's impossible, he can't be dead." Nalan Wuxia said angrily, "What are you talking about? His lungs have been removed by you. How could he not die? Tell me, where did you put the lungs that you removed from the deceased?" Fang Yuqi said in astonishment, "Officer, what are you talking about? What removal? What lungs? I only made 2 cuts on his arm. How could he die?" "2 cuts on the arm? What nonsense are you talking about?" Nalan Wuxia snapped. "Fang Yuqi, you've been caught red-handed. The evidence is sufficient. You still have the blood of the deceased on you. You can't deny it even if you want to. Confess your crime." Fang Yuqi said anxiously, "I can confess and fight for leniency, but I really didn't remove his lungs. I just made 2 cuts on his arms." Nalan Wuxia still wanted to say something, but Qin Haodong had already realized that something was wrong. He said, "Let me ask." He turned to look at Fang Yuqi and asked with mind manipulating, "Did you do the murder in the hardware store?" Fang Yuqi said, "What murder? I don't know. I really didn't kill anyone." "Then why did you go to the hardware store at midnight?" Fang Yuqi said, "I went to dinner with my friends tonight and went home to watch TV for a while. I wanted to take a bath and go to bed, but I suddenly found that I was on my period and the sanitary pads at home were all used up. I had to go out to buy sanitary pads. I passed by a hardware store at that time." Qin Haodong asked, "Why didn't you drive when you came out alone at night? Aren't you afraid of danger?" Fang Yuqi said, "There was a convenience store not far from my house, so I didn't drive. I wanted to buy something and go home, but it was too late, and the store was closed. I know there's a 24-hour convenience store near the hardware store, so I went there to buy some pads. I didn't think it was too far, so I didn't go back to get my car." At this point, Qin Haodong was sure that Fang Yuqi had not done this case, but at the same time, he was very puzzled. What was the blood on the scalpel? Why did Fang Yuqi just shout to turn herself in? He asked again, "What's with the blood on your scalpel? Why did you just say to turn yourself in?" Fang Yuqi said, "I've been living alone all these years, and sometimes I'm very afraid to go out, so I often carry a scalpel in my bag. On my way back after buying sanitary pads, I suddenly met a drunk hooligan. He held me and was about to pull me into the nearby bushes, trying to rape me. I was so scared at that time that I took out the scalpel and made 2 cuts on his arm. But it was just 2 cuts. I didn't stab him in the fatal part, and I didn't want to kill him. The hooligan let me go after he was stabbed, and then I ran away. As soon as I got home, I was caught by the police. I said to turn myself in because I stabbed the hooligan, but because he wanted to molest me, I stabbed him." After listening to Fang Yuqi, Qin Haodong breathed a sigh of relief. Although the plot was a bit melodramatic, it made complete sense. Although the case had not been solved, he was very pleased that a good doctor had been saved. He turned to Nalan Wuxia and said, "It seems that you've got the wrong person. Dr. Fang didn't do this case." Nalan Wuxia leaned back in her chair, patted her forehead and said, "It's too much of a coincidence." At this time, the technician pushed the door open and came in again. He said to Nalan Wuxia, "Captain, we just made a blood type comparison. The blood on the suspect's body is the same as the blood on the scalpel, but not the same as the blood of the deceased. So the preliminary judgment is that she is not the murderer of this murder. Naylan Wuxia said. Although Dr. Fong stabbed someone, it was self-defense. Arrange for someone to send her back immediately, and then hand over the case to the police station. Let them go to the nearby hospital to search for the hooligan. We don't have the police force to deal with such a small case. After arranging the other work, Naylan Wuxia took Qin Haodong back to her office. After entering the room, she slumped in the chair and didn't want to move. This case had been tossed around for so long. Even though she was a warrior of covert power, her energy was limited. She hadn't slept for more than 2 days, and now she felt exhausted. Are you tired? Qin Haodong came behind her, massaged her shoulders and neck, and used greenwood genuine qi to comb her tired body. It's so comfortable. Naylan Wuxia gently moaned and directly leaned her body in Qin Haodong's arms, enjoying the rare warmth and comfort. After a while, she opened her eyes and said, Haodong, your technique is really great. I really want to be massaged by you for a lifetime. Not only was Qin Haodong's massage technique unique, but the most important thing was that the greenwood genuine qi was extremely pure. In just a short time, her fatigue had been swept away, and she had regained her energy. You can do it for a lifetime, but my fee is very expensive. Qin Haodong said with a smile. How expensive can it be? Is it enough to marry me? Naylan Wuxia said as she stretched her neck and looked up at Qin Haodong. Under this unique posture, the 2 peaks on her chest looked unusually high. Her neckline was exposed. Well, who do you think the murderer of this case is? Qin Haodong quickly changed the subject. Faced with the feelings of so many girls, he didn't know how to deal with it. Sometimes he fantasized that it would be great if he were in the cultivation world, where he could marry as many girls as he wanted. Unfortunately, this was Huaxia, where monogamy was practiced. Even if he wanted to, he didn't know what these girls would think. Naylan Wuxia rolled her eyes at him bitterly, sat up straight and said, This case is really a headache. It's neither Lu Fei nor Fang Yuqi. Could it be the old Taoist who escaped? Qin Haodong said, Even if it has something to do with the old Taoist, it can't be him alone, because the old Taoist can't get the information of the patients in the hospital. Naylan Wuxia said, Do you think it's possible that the old Taoist colluded with the people in the hospital to commit the crime? It's possible, but the people in the hospital not only have to check the files, but also have to be responsible for the organ removal of the deceased, and he is a left-handed doctor. At present, only Lu Fei and Fang Yuqi meet these 2 conditions, but neither of them is the old Taoist. Could it be that we're in the wrong direction? It's just a coincidence that the 3 people were treated in Guangren Hospital. The organs were removed by someone else, or a doctor from another hospital. Naylan Wuxia thought for a moment and said, It's very unlikely, but it's still possible. Now I'll confirm with the technical department. If the deceased was still treated in Guangren Hospital, then the possibility of coincidence is completely ruled out. After that, she picked up her mobile phone and dialed the number of the technical department. She asked, This is Naylan Wuxia. Have you found out the situation of the deceased? Is there any useful information? The person on the phone said, The deceased is a 28-year-old male, a resident of the Dongqing district of Jiangnan City. There is no information related to the case. Naylan Wuxia asked, Is there any record of his hospitalization in Guangren Hospital? The person on the phone inquired and said, Yes, the deceased had an operation in Guangren Hospital last July due to appendicitis. After hanging up the phone, Naylan Wuxia turned to Qin Haodong and said, Did you hear that? This shows that we're in the right direction. The murderer must be a doctor from Guangren Hospital, or one of the gang members is a doctor from Guangren Hospital. It seems that you have to continue to work undercover there. Qin Haodong frowned and said, But left-handed surgeons have gone to the archives to check the patient's information. So far, only Lu Fei and Fang Yuqi have been suspected. Who else could it be? Naylan Wuxia said, There must be something we haven't found. As long as we find this flaw, the case will be solved. I'll think about it when I go to the hospital tomorrow. Let's analyze the case from another angle. Qin Haodong said, Have you found that there is a pattern in this case? Nalan Wuxia said. What? Now even the time of the crime has changed. I can't see any pattern. Now the criminal has killed 4 people in succession. The organs cut off are the heart, liver, kidney, lung. If you add the spleen, then it is exactly the 5 organs of a human. Is this a coincidence or intentional? Could it be that he had killed so many people just to collect the 5 types of organs? According to this pattern, the next organ he cut off is likely to be the spleen of the deceased. Nalan Wuxia said. If you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have noticed it. I thought he killed people just to sell the organs. Now it seems that it's not that simple. And from the 4 cases, the money of the deceased was not lost, which shows that the murderer did not kill for money. Generally speaking, there are only a few reasons for killing, such as love killing, revenge killing, or killing for money. At present, these reasons are not applicable to this serial murder case. So what is the purpose of his killing? Is it just because he is psychopathic and thinks it's fun to kill? Qin Haodong shook his head and said, That's impossible. If it's just psychopathic killing, he can just find a few people to kill. It's impossible to go to Guangzhou Hospital to get the records of the archives, let alone to remove the organs in the order of the 5 organs. At first glance, collecting the 5 organs is the purpose of the murderer. As for what he can do after collecting them, whether it's just for fun or for other purposes, only the murderer knows. Nalan Wuxia said. From this, it is very likely that the spleen of the next victim will be removed, but this is not very useful for solving the case. If we can know where he committed the crime, or who he is going to kill, it will be good. After listening to her, Qin Haodong's heart suddenly moved, as if he had touched something, but he could not be sure for a while. Read literature. 88,106. Chapter 380. Qin Haodong thought for a long time, but still couldn't find the key to the problem. Seeing that he was silent, Nalan Wuxia asked, What are you thinking about? Qin Haodong said, I seem to have figured out the key to the problem, but I can't penetrate it. Nalan Wuxia said, Solving a case also depends on luck. Go back and have a rest. Continue to work undercover in Guangren Hospital tomorrow. I think the key is still there. Qin Haodong nodded, disguised as Tang Feng again, and returned to the hotel where he lived. The next day, Qin Haodong came to Guangren Hospital to work, and found that there were 2 more nurses here. It seemed that the hospital had redivided the traditional Chinese medicine department. Hua Ziyan was full of smiles. When he saw Qin Haodong, he said, Little brother, I'll leave it to you today. I have something to do. I used to be the only doctor in the whole department, and I had to stay in the hospital all day. Now finally someone can see patients for me. I'm going to see my grandson. He was telling the truth. He used to be the only doctor in the traditional Chinese medicine department. In order not to let the department close, he had to stay here every day. After that, the old man packed up and left without waiting for Qin Haodong's consent. Looking at Hua Ziyan's back, Qin Haodong was amused. He had been in the hospital for too long. He would give the old man a few days off. He made himself a pot of tea, sat in front of the booth, and waited for the patients to come. But the patients didn't come. 7 or 8 people in white coats came. Some of them had gloomy faces, some raised their chins, and some had sinister smiles. In short, they seemed to have bad intentions. Qin Haodong picked up the teacup and took a sip. He looked at these people and said, Are you here to see a doctor? If you want to see a doctor, you have to register first. What illness? We are doctors, Wang Yao said. A stout middle-aged doctor said. Besides, traditional Chinese medicine is a trick. We won't come to see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, even if we want to see a doctor. Qin Haodong frowned slightly. He was sure that these people were looking for trouble. This is the traditional Chinese medicine department. What are you doing here instead of seeing a doctor? The short and fat man said, Let me introduce you first. This is Director Zhang from the dermatology department, Director Li from the respiratory department, Director Zhao from the digestive department, and Director Zhou from the andrology department. I am Director Dong Kai from the colorectal department. Dong Kai was full of arrogance when he spoke. He raised his chin, as if they were all medical experts high above, and Qin Haodong should look up to them. After he finished the introduction, Qin Haodong's expression changed, showing a look of understanding. However, before Dong Kai could be proud, he heard Qin Haodong say, "It turns out to be Director Dong of the colorectal department. I'm sorry. No wonder your words are so bad. Do you always open your mouth when treating patients?" Dong Kai almost choked to death on his own saliva. Between the two of us, whose words were worse? These words were too choking. "You." Dong Kai blushed and wanted to say something, but he was pulled behind him by Director Zhang of the dermatology department. "Tang Feng, right? We didn't ask you to come here today to bicker," Qin Haodong said lightly. "It's up to you. You can bicker or fight. As long as you ask, I will accompany you to the end." Naturally, he would not have a good attitude towards these people who were looking for trouble. Director Li of the respiratory department said, "Tang Feng, what's with your attitude? We are all chief physicians of the hospital. We are your seniors. You should respect us when you see us." Qin Haodong said, "Forget it. Don't talk about these useless things. What are you doing here? You must know that you don't deserve my respect at all." Director Zhao of the digestive department said, "Since you said so, we won't beat around the bush. Today, we are here to inform you that traditional Chinese medicine is not scientific. We want you to resign and close the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. Don't discredit Guangzhou Hospital." Director Zhou of the andrology department said, "I know. Yesterday, you happened to give a patient a dose of traditional Chinese medicine and completed an operation. In fact, what does that have to do with your traditional Chinese medicine? It was our Western medicine that saved the patient. Your black medicine soup didn't have any effect at all." These people were the backbone doctors of Guangren Hospital, and also the core strength of the hospital. Like Lu Fei before, these people all boycotted traditional Chinese medicine and often shouted for the hospital to cancel the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. It was said that there was a new doctor in the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. Yesterday, he was in the limelight in the operating room, which made these people very dissatisfied. Today, they came to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic together to fight for Western medicine. That was to say, today they came to provoke the hospital collectively. Qin Haodong's face was completely gloomy. These people didn't understand traditional Chinese medicine at all. After learning Western medicine for a few days, they came back and shouted that traditional Chinese medicine was not scientific and wanted to cancel it. Director Zhang said again, "Tang Feng, you don't have to be unhappy. We just want to teach you a truth. Traditional Chinese medicine is originally pseudoscience. Judging from your age, you should have gone to school, right?" Think about it. Western medicine is divided into dozens of disciplines, and the medical experts of each discipline specialize in a particular field. As for traditional Chinese medicine, there are no divisions at all. Think about how much energy a person has. How can he cure all kinds of diseases? This is the legendary saying, biting off more than one can chew. Big but not refined. Director Li then said, "In addition, Western medicine has countless scientific instruments as the foundation. We can do all kinds of examinations for patients and achieve accurate diagnosis and treatment. Traditional Chinese medicine, which of the legendary looking, listening, questioning, and feeling the pulse can stand up to scrutiny? To put it bluntly, they are all tricks to deceive people. You're still shouting about meridians and qi all day long. Can't you do something real? It's completely pseudoscience. If you have the ability, show me a meridian or dissect an acupoint. It's a big joke that grass roots and bark can cure diseases. Now developed countries in Europe and the United States have banned traditional Chinese medicine. You're still here to fool the people of Huaxia. Where's your conscience?" These people surrounded Qin Haodong and criticized traditional Chinese medicine one after another, as if they represented science and justice. Looking at these clown-like faces, Qin Haodong suddenly lost interest. He had nothing to say to these people, who didn't understand traditional Chinese medicine at all. When these people were almost done, he said lightly, "Are you finished? If you are, please go out." "You." These people talked for a long time, but Qin Haodong didn't respond at all. It was as if he had punched the air with all his strength. At this moment, a middle-aged man in his 50s appeared in front of the consulting room. He was a little confused when he saw the room full of white coats. He asked doubtfully, "Is the consulting room of traditional Chinese medicine here? I want to see a doctor." Two young nurses had been standing silently by the side. They didn't dare to participate in this kind of fight between doctors. Seeing the patient, they stepped forward and said, "Yes, this is the consulting room of traditional Chinese medicine. Please go inside." The middle-aged man stepped into the room, but before he came to Qin Haodong's desk, Dong Kai stopped him and said, "What's wrong with you?" "My stomach doesn't feel well. I haven't eaten for several days," the middle-aged man said, pressing his stomach. Dong Kai said, "Stomach disease is not a trivial matter. I advise you to go through a scientific examination. Western medicine is much better than traditional Chinese medicine in this regard. Director Zhao of the Department of Digestive Medicine happens to be here. He is an expert in treating stomach disease in our hospital. You can ask him to take a look at you." The middle-aged man said hesitantly, "But I'm here to see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor." Director Zhao came over and said, "Brother, you have to believe in science. How can you see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor for stomach disease? Do you think someone can find your problem just by touching your wrist? Just a few simple pricks of needles can cure your stomach problem? Or do you think the smelly and bitter traditional Chinese medicine soup is more enjoyable to drink? I'm responsible to tell you that stomach disease must go through a systematic examination to see if there is a tumor in your stomach, whether there is cancer, whether there is inflammation, and what kind of disease it is. Only in this way can you be treated systematically and fundamentally cured." "Oh, all right then." The middle-aged man nodded, as if he was frightened by Director Zhao's words. "Tell me about your symptoms." The middle-aged man said, "I just have a stomachache. I feel that my stomach is turning upside down. I have no appetite and can't eat anything." Director Zhao said, "Is the pain more intense within an hour after the meal, and then it gradually subsides?" The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Yes, that's it. I can basically determine that you have a gastric ulcer now. Go to the Department of Digestive Medicine for a systematic examination to rule out other possibilities. Then I'll decide on a treatment plan for you when I go back." "Okay, thank you, doctor." The middle-aged man turned around and left the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room, walking in the direction of the Department of Digestive Medicine. Dong Kai looked at Qin Haodong proudly and said, "See? People's eyes are bright. The patient's final choice is science." He had thought that the young man in front of him would be angry because he had robbed the patient of the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room. But he was still calm and had no reaction. They didn't know that in Qin Haodong's eyes, treatment was also a kind of fate. The man just chose Western medicine and missed the opportunity to let Emperor Greenwood treat him. It could only be the man's loss. There was nothing to be angry about. Just when these experts felt a little at a loss, another young man in his 30s appeared in front of the consulting room. After entering the door, the young man glanced at these white coats and said, "Doctor, I'm a computer programmer. Recently, my cervical spondylosis has become more and more serious. I feel dizzy and nauseous. Who can help me?" Director Sun of the orthopedics department came forward and said, "Young man, since you are a computer programmer, you should know science. How can you see a traditional Chinese medicine doctor when you are sick? You should see a Western medicine doctor." The young man was slightly stunned. It was the first time that he had seen such a doctor. He said, "I heard that the massage of traditional Chinese medicine is very effective in relieving cervical spondylosis, so I came to have a look." There is no scientific basis for this statement. I tell you, the cervical vertebra is a dense area of nerves. Don't massage it casually. If you meet an unreliable doctor, it will sometimes lead to aggravation of the condition and even lifelong paralysis. Then he pointed to Qin Haodong and said, "He is the doctor in charge of the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room. He just came to the hospital the day before yesterday. He is 30 years old this year. Do you dare to let him massage you? The young man glanced at Qin Haodong and felt that he was younger than him. He suddenly lost his confidence and said, "Well, I'd better see a Western medicine doctor." After that, he left the traditional Chinese medicine consulting room again. After persuading the patient to leave, Director Sun turned his head to look at Qin Haodong, thinking that this should be some kind of response. However, Qin Haodong was not angry. On the contrary, there was a faint smile on his face. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then he said with a smile, "Thank you, great experts and directors, for coming here to help me treat the patient. I'm a little embarrassed that I don't work for the hospital's salary." To download the latest TXT ebook of this book, please click Reading on the mobile phone. Post a book review. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collect below to record this time. Chapter 380. You can see it next time when you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 381. These people looked at each other and were surprised by Qin Haodong's reaction. They had discussed it before they came today. The basic strategy was to provoke Hua Ziyan, and then the two sides would have a further conflict. They believed that the hospital would eventually be on their side. After all, each of these people was a doctor of medicine who had studied abroad. They were the directors of various departments, the authorities of various industries, and the core strength of the hospital. It was because of this confidence that they looked down on traditional Chinese medicine and wanted to push it out of Guangren Hospital. But now the situation had changed. The hot-tempered old man Hua was not here, and this young man was even calmer than the old man. He did not respond to their continuous provocations. If two couldn't do it, then three. If three couldn't do it, then four. Let's see how long you can hold on. These people decided to continue the game, so that Qin Haodong would have no patience to see. Let's see how long he could hold on. At this time, another patient in his 60s appeared in front of the door. "Doctor, I have a headache. Who can help me?" Dong Kai immediately greeted him and cried, "Headache? Why don't you go to see a doctor of Western medicine? Why are you in the traditional Chinese medicine clinic?" I believe in traditional Chinese medicine. I think traditional Chinese medicine can cure the root cause," the old man said. "Old man, you are really muddle-headed. Traditional Chinese medicine can cure the root cause. It's all used to deceive people," Dong Kai said with saliva flying. "Headache? What's the use of traditional Chinese medicine? Have you heard of Hua Tuo? He is a legendary doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, but even he couldn't cure Chow Chow's headache. Do you think traditional Chinese medicine can cure your headache?" The old man hesitated. He felt that Dong Kai's words seemed to make sense. "Go to the neurology department. Headache is not a trivial matter. If there is a brain tumor, it will be troublesome. Find it early and treat it early." Dong Kai directly pushed the old man out of the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. He turned around and looked at Qin Haodong proudly. But Qin Haodong did not even look at him, and was still leisurely drinking his tea. What the hell? What kind of person is he? He's really useless. Why doesn't he get angry? Dong Kai was surprised and looked at Qin Haodong with disdain. Not only him, but also the two nurses next to him looked at Qin Haodong with disdain. They felt that the young doctor in front of them was so cowardly that he didn't even dare to let out a fart when Qin Haodong was riding on his neck. "Doctor, please take a look at my son. What's wrong with him?" As they spoke, an old woman in her 50s or 60s walked in with a young man in his 20s. Both of them were dressed in shabby clothes and seemed to be poor people at the bottom of society. Dong Kai came over again and asked, "What happened to your son? Where do you feel uncomfortable?" The old lady said, "I don't know why my son suddenly got a serious skin disease since the day before yesterday. His entire lower body is black and blue." Dong Kai repeated the same trick and said, "You should see Western medicine for skin diseases. Western medicine is more professional and scientific in this regard. Chinese medicine is not reliable at all." Director Zhang of the dermatology department of our hospital is here. Now I'll ask him to take a look at you." As he spoke, he turned around and pulled Director Zhang over. Unexpectedly, when the old woman saw Director Zhang, she said, "My son went to see him yesterday. He asked my son to do a blood test and a urine test. After a round of tests, he didn't find anything wrong with him. The cost was more than 1,000 yuan, which is half of my son's salary." At this time, Director Zhang also recognized the old lady and her son. He said awkwardly, "Sister, you can't blame me. Your son doesn't just have a skin disease. There should be other diseases. But don't worry. Experts from all departments of our hospital are here today. We can give your son a joint consultation. We will definitely find the cause." Dong Kai followed and said, "Yes, expert consultation. This has always been the advantage of our Western medicine. Everyone, come and see what disease this young man has." After he finished speaking, the experts gathered in a circle and surrounded the young man in the middle. They said, "Take off your pants and let us see what's wrong with you." Since so many experts were here to treat her son, the old lady immediately said excitedly, "Yes, son. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Let the doctors have a look." The young man hesitated for a moment and finally took off his pants. They saw that everything below his belly button had turned black and blue. Even his second master was not spared. The color had spread to his ankles. Looking at this situation, everyone frowned. "Young man, does your skin hurt?" "No." "Is it itchy?" "Is it numb?" "No." The experts asked a few questions in succession. The young man's skin looked very scary, but it did not hurt, itch or numb. Although they were all experts, none of them had seen such symptoms. Seeing the serious expressions on the faces of these doctors, the old lady hurriedly asked, "Doctors, what's wrong with my son? Is he seriously ill?" Director Zhao of the gastroenterology department said, "Young man, did you eat something dirty? I feel like you're poisoned." The old lady said, "That's impossible. We poor children don't often go to restaurants like you city people. We eat at home every day. We eat plain tea and rice, and I eat the same as my son. How come I'm fine?" Well, Director Zhao was speechless for a moment. Director Zhang of the dermatology department said, "Could it be an allergy? Did you come into contact with any allergens?" The young man said, "I work on the construction site every day and face bricks and cement. There are no allergens. If I were allergic, I would have been allergic long ago. Moreover, my skin is only black below my waist. If I were allergic, my whole body would have changed color. Besides, didn't you ask me to screen for allergens yesterday? There was no result." Director Zhou of the andrology department said, "Young man, do you have any dirty sex? Did you get sexually transmitted diseases?" Since these experts were speaking in such a disorderly manner, they were simply making wild guesses. The young man also lost his patience. He pulled up his pants and said angrily, "Bullsh*T, you are the one who has sexually transmitted diseases. Your whole family has sexually transmitted diseases." Director Zhou said discontentedly, "We're giving you a consultation. What's your attitude?" The young man said angrily, "Consultation my ass. I think you are all quacks. You're just making wild guesses. Especially you, it's nonsense. I don't even have a girlfriend. I'm still a virgin. How could I have sexually transmitted diseases?" Well, seeing the young man getting angry, everyone was dumbfounded. Originally, they wanted to cure the young man's disease, so that Qin Haodong would have no patients to accept. However, no one could find the cause of the disease after a long time. It was so shameful. Qin Haodong put down his teacup, stood up and looked at these people with a smile. "What's wrong? Aren't you all experts? Isn't Western medicine very scientific? Why can't you cure his disease?" Director Zhang was stunned, but he still bit the bullet and said, "This is just a preliminary diagnosis. If you want to make a diagnosis, you need to go through a careful examination with sophisticated equipment. Later, young man, come back with me. I'll give him a good examination. I'll definitely find the cause of the disease." Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, the young man immediately said excitedly, "Check, check, check. You only know how to check. Yesterday's examination cost me more than 1,000 yuan. You want to check again? Doesn't the examination cost money? Will you pay for the examination for me? Director Zhang said awkwardly. Young man, only a precise examination can make a diagnosis. This is science. You have to believe in science. Science my ass, the young man said angrily. I worked hard at the construction site for a day and only earned more than 100 yuan. Then I gave all the money to you black-hearted doctors. In the end, you can't cure my disease at all. Quack. You are all quacks. Being pointed at and called quack, Director Zhang was extremely angry and aggrieved, but he had nothing to say. He really couldn't find the cause of the disease. Seeing these people unhappy, Qin Haodong was naturally very happy. He looked at them and said with a smile, Aren't you very scientific? Aren't you experts? Why can't you even find the cause? Does it feel good to be scolded as a quack? Dong Kai was stunned and said, Young man, don't be proud. This is a difficult disease. Even if we can't find the cause, can you find it? Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, Of course I can. In fact, the disease of the young man is very simple. The reason why you can't find it is because you are arrogant and always hold some bullshit science. You don't stand in the perspective of ordinary people at all. Hearing that Qin Haodong could cure the young man's disease, the old woman said, Doctor, can you really find the cause of my son's disease? Qin Haodong said, I'm not a quack. This disease is very simple. I can cure it in minutes. The old woman said repeatedly, That's great. Doctor, thank you. I thank you on behalf of my son. Dong Kai immediately said, Don't listen to his bragging. It's a lie. I don't believe that so many experts can't find the cause. He can do it. Now I'll convince you all. After that, Qin Haodong said to the nurse next to him, Get a basin of water and a piece of soap. The nurse didn't understand what he meant. Why did he need water and soap to see a doctor? Could these things be used to cure diseases? Dong Kai said sarcastically, Surname Tang. Do you think the patient is dirty? You want to wash your hands before seeing the doctor? Qin Haodong glanced at him and said, Has anyone ever told you that if you don't speak, you can cover up your ignorance? The more you speak, the more incompetent you are? You. Dong Kai's face turned red. He said angrily, I don't believe you can cure the young man's disease. Let's see what else you have to say later. Soon, the nurse came over with a basin of water and a piece of soap. Qin Haodong asked the young man to sit on a chair. Then he took off his shoes and put his feet in the basin of water. Dong Kai couldn't help but say sarcastically again, Tang Feng, is this the so-called foot-soaking treatment in traditional Chinese medicine? Qin Haodong ignored him. He rolled up the young man's trousers, then sprinkled water on his legs and applied soap. Just when everyone was wondering what he was doing, they suddenly found that the color of the young man's legs began to fade rapidly, revealing the original yellow skin. The old woman asked in surprise, Doctor, what disease does my son have? Qin Haodong stood up and said with a smile, Your son is not sick at all. Director Zhang cried, That's impossible. I have 20 years of medical experience. If a person is not sick, his skin can't be that color. You must have done something to the water and put illegal drugs in it, right? Qin Haodong looked at him, as if he was looking at a fool. He said jokingly, Shut up, idiot. How can you be a dermatologist with 20 years of medical experience? Can't you see that it's just his underwear that's faded? Chapter 382. Director Zhang was stunned and then cried. What? Who are you kidding? My underwear is fading. Can underwear fade? People like you have never lived a hard life. Of course, you don't know that inferior underwear will fade. Qin Haodong turned to the young man and asked, Your underwear is no more than 20 yuan, right? The young man did not speak, and the old woman said with some embarrassment, Dr. Tang, this pair of underwear is only 8 yuan. My son hasn't married yet. I want to save more money for him, so that he can get a wife in the future. So I usually spend a little less. I didn't expect to make such a fool of myself. Qin Haodong said, It's nothing. Go back and change into underwear, take a shower, and everything will be fine. Remember, although life is a little difficult, you can't buy such inferior things. Faded underwear is still very harmful to the skin, and it's easy to get skin diseases if you wear it for a long time. Got it, Dr. Tang. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll pay attention in the future. The old woman and the young man thanked Qin Haodong again and again. After putting on his shoes again, the young man turned his head and pointed to Director Zhang's nose and cried, "Quack, I'm not sick at all. You cheated me of more than 1,000 yuan. Give me back my hard-earned money." Director Zhang said with embarrassment, "Well, the hospital took the money, and I can't give it back to you. Son, forget it. Let's go home." In the end, it was the old woman who dragged the young man out of the traditional Chinese medicine consultation room. Before they left, the young man spat at Director Zhang and the others. "You can't even tell that the color of your underwear has faded. How dare you call yourself an expert?" Seeing the two people leave, the experts' faces were burning. They had originally come to slap Qin Haodong in the face, but they didn't expect to be slapped in the face by such a dramatic plot. The most sad thing was that they were defeated by a pair of underwear. These people had no face to stay there any longer. They turned around and were about to leave, but they heard Qin Haodong say, "Wait a minute. Who said you could leave?" Dong Kai was angry. Qin Haodong's performance just now made him think that this person was weak and easy to bully. He turned his head and roared, "I can come and go as I please. You can't control me." Before he could finish his words, Qin Haodong reached out and poked him in the chest. Then he stood there like a wax figure and could not move anymore. Realizing that he had lost control of his body, Dong Kai was frightened. He cried in horror, "What are you doing? Let me go." Director Zhao stepped forward and said, "Hurry up and let him go. Do you know that this is a personal attack? You have to bear legal responsibility." Before he finished speaking, Qin Haodong also hit his acupoint. In the blink of an eye, the 7 or 8 people who had just come to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic to provoke were all standing there like wax figures, unable to move. Only their mouths could still speak. You can do it once or twice, but you can't do it 3 or 4 times. As Chinese, you should understand this principle. But you've challenged my bottom line time and again. If I don't teach you a lesson, you'll really think that I'm a sick cat. Qin Haodong stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the people in front of him playfully. Aren't you believers of science? Didn't he swear that the meridians of Chinese medicine don't exist at all, and that acupoints are nonsense? Now I've hit your acupoints. Let's go. Show me if you have the ability. Although these people were doctors, they had never felt the feeling of being hit on their acupoints. They were all shocked and shouted, "Qin Haodong, you can't do this. Let us go." Qin Haodong walked around them and said sarcastically, "Aren't you believers of Western medicine? Aren't you medical experts? Now explain it to me. What's the reason? Why didn't you move when I pointed at you with my finger? Are you cooperating with me to perform magic? Unblock your acupoints yourself if you have the ability. Don't beg me." Dong Kai and the others struggled for a long time. Their foreheads were sweating, but they still couldn't get back control of their bodies. At this time, they completely understood the power of traditional Chinese medicine. They knew that the hitting of acupoints was not fake, but real. Standing like zombies was not a solution. Director Zhao was the first who couldn't help but say to Qin Haodong, "Dr. Tang, I was wrong. I'm begging you, let us go." As soon as he started, the others also followed him to beg for mercy. "Yes, Dr. Tang. It's our fault today. Please let us go. We used to have a misunderstanding about traditional Chinese medicine. Now we know that acupoints really exist." Since these people had changed their attitude, Qin Haodong glanced at them and sneered, "Now you know you're wrong. We know we're wrong. We know we're wrong. We admit our mistakes. We sincerely apologize to you and to traditional Chinese medicine." These people said hurriedly. They didn't have the demeanor of a chief expert just now. Admit your mistakes. Apologize. Is that useful? If an apology is useful, why do we need the police? Qin Haodong's expression changed and he said harshly, Traditional Chinese medicine is the wealth left to us by our ancestors. It's the accumulation of 5,000 years of culture. It's the result of countless generations of research. Because of this, traditional Chinese medicine can cure any disease. It's also because the human body is a whole that traditional Chinese medicine doesn't need to be classified. I'm not against Western medicine, but you people have just learned Western medicine for a few years. It's ridiculous that you call yourself a science and question traditional Chinese medicine. How many years has it been since Western medicine was born? 100 years or 200 years? How can it be compared with 5,000 years of heritage? How can it be compared with traditional Chinese medicine? Dong Kai was reluctant to apologize. He cried, "Tang Feng, we've already admitted our mistakes. What else do you want? What else? You just insulted traditional Chinese medicine. Now I'm going to slap your faces. How dare you?" Before Dong Kai finished speaking, Qin Haodong had already come in front of him. Qin Haodong raised his hand and slapped him twice in the face. The two slaps were loud and crisp, leaving 10 red fingerprints on his face. Following that, Chief Zhao, Chief Li, Chief Zhang, Chief Zhou, those who came to provoke Qin Haodong and traditional Chinese medicine, were all slapped in the face by Qin Haodong in public. The two young nurses were stunned and soon revealed unconcealable excitement in their hearts. They just thought that Qin Haodong was extremely weak. They didn't expect that he would be domineering in the blink of an eye. His slaps were so handsome. Dr. Tang is so handsome. He's my idol. I don't know if Dr. Tang has a girlfriend. If not, I'm willing to. This is just a small punishment. If I see you slander traditional Chinese medicine again, I'll cut your mouths. Qin Haodong shouted, "Get out of here, all of you." When he finished speaking, these people magically regained their ability to move. Dong Kai moved his stiff limbs and rubbed his swollen cheeks. He pointed at Qin Haodong and yelled, "Tang Feng, just you wait. How dare you hit us? You'll be fired by the hospital. Pack up and leave." Qin Haodong's eyes lit up. Director Li also shouted angrily, "That's right. We're all the elites of the hospital. You're just a Chinese medicine practitioner. How dare you hit us? You'll be fired." Qin Haodong frowned. He didn't expect that these people really didn't learn their lesson. They shouted at him as soon as they were released. Just as he was about to teach them a lesson, someone at the door shouted, "Who the hell is shouting here? How dare you disrespect my uncle? You don't want to work here anymore, do you?" Everyone looked at the source of the voice and saw Zhang Hao at the door. Little boss. These people naturally knew Zhang Hao. He was the only son of their boss, Zhang Lijun. He was bound to be the heir of Guangren Hospital in the future. However, these people were also very confused. They looked at each other and didn't know who Zhang Hao called uncle. Dong Kai was puzzled. He couldn't think of anyone among them who was so low-key. He turned out to be Little Boss's uncle and had never been exposed. He really hid it well. But this was not important. What was important was that Qin Haodong was going to die today. This time, they didn't need to do anything. Little Boss would directly drive him out of the hospital. Who asked him to offend Little Boss's uncle? Thinking of this, he became more and more proud. He pointed at Qin Haodong and cried, "Boy, you offended Little Boss's uncle. You're dead." But before he finished speaking, Zhang Hao directly hit the back of his head. "Are you King sick? How can you talk to my uncle like that?" "Well, Little Boss, I didn't mean your uncle. I meant this boy." Dong Kai was so dizzy that he still hadn't come to his senses. Zhang Hao raised his hand and gave him another blow to the head. "This is my uncle." Ah, everyone was dumbfounded. No one had thought that Qin Haodong, who didn't show himself, was Zhang Hao's uncle, the boss's brother-in-law. How could it be possible? If they had known this, they wouldn't have dared to make trouble for Qin Haodong. The hospital belonged to other people, but they came to provoke the boss's uncle. Weren't they stupid? Although these people's medical skills were very good, and they were all authoritative in the industry, Guangren Hospital was the best private hospital in the south of the Yangtze River. The salary offered to them was also very good. If they were really fired by the boss, it would be difficult to find such a good place again. At this time, Zhang Hao came to Qin Haodong and said with a flattering face, Uncle, these bastards dared to disrespect you. Tell me, how do you want to deal with them? I'll help you right away. Qin Haodong looked at these people playfully. Everyone who met his eyes immediately lowered their heads, for fear of provoking him again. Especially Dong Kai, he was now regretting to death. Why didn't he just stay in the office and drink tea and flirt with the little nurse? Why did he come here to get involved in this mess? At this time, his heart was in his throat. He was afraid that Qin Haodong would ask Zhang Hao to fire him. After a pause, Qin Haodong waved his hand and said, "Tell them all to get out of here. Don't come to the traditional Chinese medicine clinic again." Zhang Hao was originally a playboy, so he naturally wouldn't be polite to these people. He immediately shouted, "Did you hear that? My uncle asked you to get out of here. Get out now. Don't come here to make the old man unhappy again, or I'll make you pay." Although these words were extremely rude, these people immediately ran out of the traditional Chinese medicine clinic, as if they had been pardoned. They were afraid that they would lose their jobs if they were slow. After driving these people away, Zhang Hao said to Qin Haodong with a smile again, "Uncle, if anyone in our hospital provokes you again, tell me. I'll immediately ask them to pack up and get out." Of course, Qin Haodong didn't care about these things. He smiled and said, "Keep a low profile. I told you to keep a low profile." Zhang Hao patted his head and said, "I'm sorry, uncle. I couldn't control myself when I saw these guys make you angry." Qin Haodong said, "What's done is done. What do you want from me?" Zhang Hao said, "Uncle, today is Rubing's birthday. I want to discuss with you what gift to give her." Chapter 383. Qin Haodong then remembered that today was Wang Rubing's birthday. He used to remember his sister's birthday every year. But this year there were so many things that he had forgotten about it because of the serial murders. He said, "The key to a gift is the intention, not the value. Just do it with your heart." Zhang Hao said, "I know that, but I want to ask you, uncle, what does Rubing like most?" Qin Haodong said with a look of reminiscence, "When I was a child, my family was poor. Before the new year, what I wanted most was a string of firecrackers. And what Rubing wanted most was a beautiful headdress. When I grew up, I would give her a headdress every time she had a birthday. Now that she has a boyfriend, I'll give you this task." "That's great, uncle. I knew you would give me good advice," Zhang Hao said excitedly. "Now go to the best jewelry store and order the most beautiful headdress for her." "What kind of headdress?" "Make her a queen's crown. Wang Rubing will be my queen for the rest of my life." Seeing Zhang Hao's attentive look, Qin Haodong was secretly happy for his sister. It was not easy for a woman to meet a man who loved her sincerely. Wang Rubing was lucky in this regard. For his sister's happiness, he asked again, "Does your family know about you and Rubing? Will they think that Rubing's family is too ordinary?" Zhang Hao said, "No, they won't. I've already told my father about Rubing. My father said that he completely respected my personal opinion about finding a girlfriend. He just asked about Rubing's birth date." Qin Haodong said in surprise, "Birth date? Director Zhang cares about this?" "Of course. Although my father is a doctor, he is very superstitious about this. He said that my mother died soon after giving birth to me because of the incompatibility of the birth date. So if two people want to be together, the most important thing is that their birth date matches." "Oh," Qin Haodong nodded and asked, "What about your birth date with Rubing? Does it match or not?" Zhang Hao said excitedly, "I don't know about these things. My father found someone to calculate that they match very well. It's like a match made in heaven." "That's good." Qin Haodong breathed a sigh of relief. If the marriage was opposed by the family, it would definitely be troublesome. A marriage without the blessing of the family was difficult to achieve perfect happiness. Zhang Hao added, "My father has seen Rubing's photo and likes it very much. He's going to celebrate Rubing's birthday with me tonight. It's like meeting her parents." "Not bad, I wish you all the best." Qin Haodong poured a cup of tea and handed it to Zhang Hao saying, "Have a cup of tea and try my cooking. It smells so good." Zhang Hao smelled the aroma of the tea from afar. He reached out and took it. Then he drank the tea in the cup in one gulp. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Uncle, your tea is really fragrant. I've never had such fragrant tea." Qin Haodong glanced at him and said, "So you are left-handed?" Ever since he learned that the serial killer was left-handed, he had been particularly sensitive to people's left and right hands. Just now, Zhang Hao had used his left hand to drink the tea. Zhang Hao laughed and said, "Yeah, people say that left-handed people are smart. I got it from my dad. My dad is very smart, and he's also left-handed." After that, Zhang Hao drank 2 more cups of tea in a row, then said goodbye to Qin Haodong and left the traditional Chinese medicine clinic. There were not many patients in the morning. After Qin Haodong treated a few more patients in a row, it was lunchtime. Guangren Hospital had its own staff cafeteria. He went downstairs to the cafeteria for lunch. As soon as he got downstairs, he met Fang Yuqi. Fang Yuqi's face was a little pale and a little tired. When she saw Qin Haodong, she said, "Dr. Tang, let's eat." Qin Haodong laughed and said, "Yes, what a coincidence. Let's eat together. Yesterday you treated me to a 400,000 yuan meal. Today I'll treat you to a meal in return." Speaking of the meal last night, Fang Yuqi smiled and said, "Are you laughing at me? I didn't bring enough money to treat you to dinner." "It's not your fault. That restaurant is too unscrupulous." They went into the cafeteria talking and laughing. After getting their food, they found a table and sat down. Qin Haodong said, "You don't look very well. Are you too tired?" "I'm a little tired." Fang Yuqi first took a sip of soup, then said, "I don't know why Lu Fei didn't go to work today. I did all his operations. I didn't even have time to drink water all morning. Today's operation schedule is too busy. There are 3 operations in the afternoon, 1 big and 2 small. If it weren't for the director's help, I would have been too busy." "The director's help? Can the director also perform operations?" Qin Haodong asked in surprise. Of course, the director was a famous scalpel in Guangren Hospital. His surgical skills were so high that even I felt inferior. It's just that later he became the director and rarely performed. If it weren't for the special situation today, when Lu Fei suddenly disappeared, he wouldn't have come to help. Qin Haodong's heart skipped a beat. He touched something again, but he still didn't grasp it. Fang Yuqi continued, "I don't have enough energy today. Last night I went shopping. First I met a drunk hooligan, then I encountered a murder case, and I was taken to the police for interrogation. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so tired." She didn't know that the man sitting in front of her was the one who had interrogated her last night. After lunch they said goodbye. Fang Yuqi went back to rest. She needed to sleep for a while, so that she could be energetic for the afternoon operation. Qin Haodong saw a dozen more patients in the afternoon. Near the end of work, he received a call from Nailan Wuxia. "Haodong, are you off work?" Nailan Wuxia's voice was a little tired. "I'm off work." "What's the matter?" "You're off work. Come to work with me," Nailan Wuxia said. "For people died in a row. The higher-ups attach great importance to this case and demand that it be solved in the near future. But now there are no good clues, so we can only start by investigating Taoists. Today, our people brought back a dozen Taoists. Come and help interrogate them, and see if you can find anything useful." "Okay, I'm on my way." Qin Haodong hung up the phone and shook his head with a smile. It seemed that Nailan Wuxia was really desperate. She even used such a stupid method. It was also because of his mind manipulating. Otherwise, no matter how many people he interrogated, it would be useless. He took a taxi to the crime squad, went to Nailan Wuxia's office to remove the disguise on his face, restored Qin Haodong's appearance, and then went to the detention room. When he got there, he couldn't help laughing again. There were more than a dozen old Taoists, big or small. The old ones were 70 or 80 years old, and the young ones were 20 or 30 years old. Some were sage-like, and some were sloppy. There were all kinds of people. Nailan Wuxia said, "There's no other way. Let's try it. Maybe we can find some clues from these people." Qin Haodong nodded and went to the interrogation room with Nailan Wuxia. 2 policemen brought a little old Taoist in his 20s and began to interrogate him. In order to save time, Qin Haodong directly used mind manipulating and asked, "Do you know about the soul-calming talisman?" The little old Taoist said, "I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it." "Did you do the murder a few days ago?" "I don't know about the murder, and I haven't killed anyone." After a few simple questions, Naylan Wuxia made sure that the little old Taoist was not suspected of committing a crime at all. Then, she directly let him go, and then brought in an old Taoist in his 40s. Qin Haodong asked, "Do you know about the soul-calming talisman?" The old Taoist shook his head. "I don't know. What is it? Aren't you a Taoist? Why haven't you heard of the soul-calming talisman?" The old Taoist said, "I'm a fake Taoist. I don't know Taoist magic at all. I just got a Taoist robe to cheat some food and pocket money." Naylan Wuxia didn't expect to catch a fake Taoist who was swindling people. She called in 2 policemen and said, "Send him to the police station and deal with him as a fraud." After that, they asked 7 or 8 Taoists in a row, but still found nothing. At this time, the 2 policemen brought in another old Taoist. The old Taoist looked sloppy. His Taoist robe was shabby, and his face was full of wrinkles. It was impossible to tell his age, and he looked a little crazy. If he were a monk, he would be similar to Ji Gong in the TV series. After entering the door, before Qin Haodong could say anything, the old Taoist looked at Naylan Wuxia and said, "Policewoman, do you want to see me for fortune-telling? Let me tell you, I'm known as the god of fortune-telling. I know 500 years in the past and 500 years in the future. Each divination is 200 yuan, and I'm honest. But since we're fated to meet, I'll give you 2 a divination for free." Qin Haodong found it very interesting that the sloppy old Taoist would tell the police his fortune and charge them for it. He didn't stop him, but just watched with a smile. The sloppy old Taoist glanced at Naylan Wuxia with his turbid eyes and said, "Policewoman, you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You don't have to worry about food and clothing. You'll find a good husband in the future. But there's one thing that's not so good." Naylan Wuxia didn't take the old Taoist's words seriously at first. Hearing him talk about her marriage, she couldn't help but ask, "What's not so good?" The sloppy old Taoist said, "Your husband is fated to be in love. No matter where he goes, he'll be accompanied by beautiful women. You can't enjoy him alone. But don't worry about it. All excellent men are surrounded by beautiful women. It's normal for them to have 3 or 4 wives. So don't worry about it." After hearing the old Taoist's words, Naylan Wuxia's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't help glancing at Qin Haodong. The man she liked was so perfect that she couldn't find fault with him. Besides, he was surrounded by beautiful women. It seemed that it was true. "Young man, I'll also give you a divination for free." After the old Taoist finished speaking, he looked at Qin Haodong with his turbid eyes again. Suddenly, a light flashed in his eyes, but it disappeared in a very short time. If Qin Haodong didn't have a strong spirit, he wouldn't have felt it. Qin Haodong was shocked in his heart. At this moment, he was sure that the sloppy old Taoist was definitely a hermit master, even to an unimaginable level. After entering the threshold of covert power, he could easily see through the cultivation of supreme power masters with his strong spirit, but he couldn't see through the old Taoist. Could it be that the old Taoist had surpassed the supreme power? It was impossible to reach this level in a place like the earth, where the spiritual qi was scarce. Did he just see it wrong? However, in this way, he didn't dare to use mind manipulating on the old Taoist again. Mind manipulating was useful, but it had its limits. He had to ensure that his spiritual power could crush the old Taoist, or he would encounter a strong backfire. While he kept guessing, the old Taoist also showed a puzzled face and murmured, "Strange, really strange. There's even a face that I can't see through." Naylan Wuxia didn't know what they were thinking. Seeing that the old Taoist didn't say anything, she asked, "Taoist, why don't you speak? What's his fate like? How many women are there in his life?" This was what she cared about most. She felt that the old Taoist was really something, so she couldn't help asking. Chapter 384. I'm ashamed. I'm really ashamed. The old Taoist shook his head and said, I can't see through this man's face. This is the first time I've encountered such a thing since I started practicing the 5 elements divination. Qin Haodong was shocked again. He was reborn in another body, which was equivalent to changing his fate. Naturally, he couldn't predict his future. However, the slovenly old Taoist could even see through this. From this point, he was different from those Jianghu swindlers. Nalan Wuxia didn't know this. The old Taoist said that Qin Haodong's fate couldn't be predicted, which made her suspicious again. She couldn't help asking, Are you a fortune teller or not? The old Taoist priest regained his crazed expression and said, Of course, I can predict the future of anyone except this benefactor. Nalan Wuxia was confused about whether the fortune the old Taoist had just calculated for her was accurate or not. To verify it, she said, I mean, can you predict a person's birth time? The old Taoist said, Of course, but there's a fee. 200 yuan for each hexagram. If you can predict it accurately, I'll double the fee. Nalan Wuxia told him the birth time of the first victim. I have a friend who was born at 11 o'clock p.m. on December 5th, 34 years after the founding of the People's Republic. Can you help me predict his fate? The slovenly old Taoist closed his eyes slightly, and the 5 fingers of his left hand moved quickly. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Nalan Wuxia, saying, Officer, this man is dead. As soon as he said this, Nalan Wuxia's heart suddenly jumped. The old Taoist could predict that the man was dead. Either the old Taoist was good at divination, or he had something to do with this case. After thinking for a while, she felt that the former was more likely. If the old Taoist really had something to do with this murder, he wouldn't have revealed such a flaw. It seemed that the old Taoist's fortune teller was not a bluff. Thinking of this, she really took out 4 red 100 yuan bills from her pocket and gave them to the slovenly old Taoist. The old Taoist immediately smiled when he saw the money. He happily took it and put it in his pocket. Since you've taken the money, you should complete the divination. The old Taoist priest continued. This person has a fire fate, and there will be a great calamity in his life. It comes from the time of the fire sun in the year of Dingyu, when the fire heart flame absorbs the 5 elements. He should be hiding at home today, or at least away from places with the fire attribute. If this person had met me earlier, I would have taught him how to avoid disasters. Unfortunately, he did not have this fate. As the saying goes, if the king of hell wants him to die at midnight, no one dares to stay until midnight. This is his fate. The old Taoist priest's 5 fingers twitched a few more times as he said, This person must have suffered quite a calamity. His limbs would have been mutilated after his death. With his fire elemental life providence, and the fact that he died on such a special day, it seems like his fire elemental heart was damaged. After he finished the calculation, Nalan Wuxia was stunned. The old Taoist was so powerful that he could calculate the situation of the deceased clearly. Qin Haodong was also quite shocked. It seemed that the old Taoist was indeed a rare hermit master. Seeing that the old Taoist was so accurate, Nalan Wuxia asked excitedly, Taoist, can you figure out who the murderer is? As long as you can figure it out, I'll give you 10 times, no, 20 times the amount of divination money. The old Taoist looked at her and said, Although I'm an ironclad fortune teller, I'm not an immortal. How can I calculate so much? If you can know the murderer's birth date in 8 characters, I can calculate for him. Nalan Wuxia looked disappointed. If she knew who the murderer was, she would have arrested him long ago. There would be no need for her to calculate. At this time, she thought of the purpose of bringing the old Taoist to the interrogation room. So she turned to look at Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong shook his head and said, Let the Taoist go. Now it seemed that this case could not have been done by the scruffy old Taoist. In other words, even if it was done by the old Taoist, with his current cultivation, he did not dare to use the mind-manipulating skill on the old Taoist. Although Nalan Wuxia did not know why Qin Haodong let the old Taoist leave without asking a word, she still did as he was told. She said to the old Taoist, Taoist, sorry to disturb you today. Please go back. Hearing that, the old Taoist immediately said to Qin Haodong with a smile, Young man, you are good. I owe you a divination just now. Now I'll give you a hint. In fact, the answer you are looking for is in front of you, but you haven't found it. After saying that, the scruffy old Taoist laughed and left the interrogation room. The answer I am looking for is in front of me, but I haven't found it. Recalling the old Taoist's words, Qin Haodong had the same feeling again. It seemed that he had grasped the key to the problem, but he was just a little bit away. Since the old Taoist said that he would give him a hint, he must have found something. What did he find? Qin Haodong closed his eyes and replayed the scene after the old Taoist entered the door in his mind. Nalan Wuxia knew that he was thinking about something, so she did not disturb him, nor did she ask the police to bring in other old Taoists. After entering the door, the old Taoist first calculated for Nalan Wuxia, which should have nothing to do with the case. Then he calculated for the dead man, which should be the problem. He repeated the hexagram that the old Taoist had told him from beginning to end. It was the day that the deceased died. The deceased was a fireborn, and the heart that he had lost was the heart that represented the element of fire. Thinking of this, he suddenly slapped his thigh. The dead man was in the kitchen god temple, which also represented the property of fire. This was definitely not a coincidence, but a careful plan by the murderer. He also knew the 5 elements algorithm, but he did not connect this case. It seemed that the answer the old Taoist said was in front of him, but he did not see it. Then he took the information of the other 3 dead men and checked them again with the 5 elements algorithm. The second dead man had a life of water. He died in a boat on the lake. Naturally, he had a property of water. He died on the day of water in the year of Dingyu, and he lost his kidney, which represented the property of water. The third dead man had a life of wood. He died in a park with a property of wood. He died on the day of wood in the year of Dingyu, and he lost his liver, which represented the property of wood. The fourth dead man had a life of metal. He died in a hardware store with a property of metal. He died on the day of gold in the year of Dingyu, and he lost his lung, which represented the property of metal. After summarizing all the information, Qin Haodong immediately understood that the murderer was obviously killing people according to the property of the 5 elements. This was definitely not a coincidence but a careful plan. Killing people, taking away the 5 organs that represented different properties, and at the same time taking away the souls of the dead man. What was the murderer trying to do? At this time, he suddenly remembered that there used to be a kind of evil magic in the cultivation world, which used the 5 organs of the dead man and the corresponding souls to make elixirs. The elixir was called the 5 elements of soul-nourishing elixir, which had an amazing effect. It could heal people's injuries instantly and help them break through the bottleneck of cultivation quickly. There was no doubt that the murderer wanted to make this elixir. Seeing his expression, Nalan Wuxia asked, "Haodong, did you think of something?" The old Taoist was right. The answer is in front of me, but I didn't pay attention to it before. Qin Haodong told her his speculation and finally said, "The murderer is killing people according to the law of the 5 elements, and his purpose is to make the 5 elements of soul-nourishing elixir. The time of killing is not 3 or 2 days apart, but according to the order of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. That is to say, the next crime will be committed on the Earth Day of Dingyu." Nalan Wuxiao asked, "When is it?" Qin Haodong counted with his fingers, and his expression suddenly changed. "The Earth Day is today, and the Earth hour is 2 hours later." "What? That is to say, the murderer will kill again in 2 hours?" Nalan Wuxiao cried. "Haodong, we must find a way to stop him. If the murderer kills 5 people and doesn't commit crimes again, it will be difficult to solve this case." "Don't worry. Let's analyze it now," Qin Haodong said. "Now we are very clear about the murderer's motive. It is to kill people and make elixirs. The time of the crime can be preliminarily determined. It will take place 2 hours later, which is between 21 and 23 o'clock tonight. The location of the crime should be a place with a very strong earth element, but it is too wide to be sure. But we can start with the target. The murderer has now gathered the organs and souls of the four elements of metal, wood, water, and fire. The last one is the earth element, so the victim must be an earth element. Nailan Wuxia said. But there are so many people in Huaxia, and there are definitely many people with an earth element. How can we be sure? Qin Haodong said. There are indeed many people with an earth element, but judging from the previous victims, the murderer has high requirements. He must be born on the Earth Day of Dingyu. There are definitely not many people who meet this condition. If they have seen a doctor in Guangren Hospital, it will be easy to be sure. Nailan Wuxia's eyes lit up. As long as they found the murderer's target, the case would be solved more than half. She said to Qin Haodong, "Tell me when the Earth Day of Dingyu are. I will ask the technical department to check the information immediately." Qin Haodong took a pen and paper, wrote the date on the paper, and put it in front of her. Nailan Wuxia took out her mobile phone and immediately dialed the number of the technical department. "Help me check the birth dates of these people immediately." The range is the medical information database of Guangren Hospital. After several consecutive cases, the technical department had stored the medical information database of Guangren Hospital in electronic files. The speed of the inquiry was very fast. A few minutes later, the result of the inquiry was sent to Nailan Wuxia's mobile phone. Nailan Wuxia glanced at the mobile phone and frowned slightly. Qin Haodong asked, "What's wrong? Is there no one who meets the conditions?" "There are two results. One died in a traffic accident the year before last, and the other emigrated overseas and officially settled in M country. He hasn't returned to Huaxia for a long time." Qin Haodong also frowned. In this way, there was no target for the murderer to commit the crime. Naturally, the case could not be solved. Nailan Wuxia asked, "Haodong, since there is no suitable target, is it possible that the murderer will stop the crime tonight?" Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "It's unlikely because the murderer has obtained 4 kinds of organs and can't store them for too long. He must find a suitable spleen as soon as possible. Otherwise, all his previous efforts will be in vain." We can't just limit our attention to the medical personnel of Guangren Hospital. Since the murderer has started to commit the crime, he should have made a detailed plan before. Maybe he already has a suitable target in mind. This person may be his friend or someone he knows. Nailan Wuxia said anxiously, "What should we do? We have no direction at all now." At this moment, Qin Haodong's mobile phone rang. He glanced at it and found it was his aunt Li Shulan. "Aunt, what's the matter?" "Haodong, today is your sister's birthday. She is in Jiangnan City. Help me buy her a gift." "Yes, Aunt." Qin Haodong suddenly asked, "Aunt, what time was my sister born?" "She was born at 9 o'clock in the evening." Qin Haodong's expression suddenly changed. Wang Rubing was born in an earthy year and earthy day. Coupled with this hour, it completely met the conditions of the murderer. Chapter 385. Thinking of this, Qin Haodong couldn't help but feel creeped out. He asked again, "Aunt, did you remember it wrong?" Li Shulan said, "What are you talking about? Aunt is not a dotard. How could she forget her daughter's birthday?" "That's right. Your sister was born at 9 o'clock in the evening. At that time, Aunt was ready to go to bed." At this time, Qin Haodong had no time to listen anymore. He quickly said, "Aunt, I'm in a hurry now. I'll call you back when I have time." Then he hung up the phone with a heavy face. "What's wrong, Haodong?" Nailan Wuxia asked. She had rarely seen Qin Haodong so nervous. "My sister was born in the Earth year, day and hour. I have a bad feeling that she will be the murderer's next target." "Then what are you waiting for? Ask where your sister is, and go to protect her now. First of all, you have to ensure her personal safety. It would be best if you could catch the murderer." Qin Haodong nodded, took out his mobile phone and dialed Wang Rubing's number. He asked, "Sister, where are you?" Wang Rubing said excitedly, "I'm with Zhang Hao. He said he would give me a special birthday tonight." Qin Haodong said, "Tell me where you are. I'll come to you now." Wang Rubing laughed and said, "What are you doing here? Don't you feel like a third wheel?" Qin Haodong was not in the mood to joke at this time. He didn't want to tell Wang Rubing the truth for fear of scaring her. So he said, "Aunt asked me to prepare a birthday gift for you. I want to send it to you now." "Wait a moment. Zhang Hao and I are in the car. I'll send you the location when we get there." "Where are you going?" "I don't know. I'm in Zhang Hao's car. He said he would take me to a special place." Wang Rubing's tone was both excited and expectant. This was the first time she had spent her birthday with her boyfriend. "That's it. I'll send you a message when I get there." Then she hung up the phone. Nailin Wuxia stood next to them and heard their conversation clearly. She asked, "She's with her boyfriend. Don't you think too much?" Was he really thinking too much? Zhang Hao was undoubtedly sincere to Wang Rubing. He could feel it. But why do I always have this kind of uneasiness in my heart? This kind of uneasiness came from the perception of the primordial spirit, so it should not be wrong. Suddenly, a series of images flashed through his mind. First, Fang Yuqi said at lunch, "The director used to be a famous scalpel in Guangren Hospital. His surgical skills were so high that even I felt inferior to him. But later, when he became the director, he seldom performed." Then there was the conversation she had with Zhang Hao while they were drinking tea. "Left-handed people are all smart, and my dad is also left-handed. My dad just asked for Rubing's birth date, and had someone look at it and said that we are very compatible." In the end, Zhang Tingting from the archives said, "Only the director has a copy of the patient's electronic file." Seeing him in a daze, Nailin Wuxia asked, "What's wrong, Haodong? Why don't you speak?" I know who the murderer is." "Really? Who is it?" Nailin Wuxia asked with wide eyes. "It's Zhang Lijun, the director of Guangren Hospital. Previously, we only focused on the doctors in Guangzhou Hospital, but we forgot that there's a director. He has the information of all the patients, so it's easy to check. Principal Zhang, is this possible?" Hearing the answer, Nailin Wuxia was extremely shocked. "It's him. I can't be wrong. I've already learned that Zhang Lijun's surgical skills are very high, and he's left-handed, which is in line with all our previous speculations." Speaking of this, Qin Haodong's expression suddenly changed. "He also learned about my sister's birth date before. It seems that he has already made preparations. Zhang Hao said that Zhang Lijun will celebrate my sister's birthday with them tonight. This is a conspiracy. He must want to do it at this time." Speaking of this, he took out his mobile phone and called Wang Rubing again. In any case, he wanted Wang Rubing to return quickly. He could not risk his sister's life. But this time the phone was turned off. He called Zhang Hao's phone again, but it was also turned off. Damn it! Seeing that there was only more than an hour left before 9 p.m., he turned to Nailin Wuxia and said, "Now we can be 100% sure that the murderer is Zhang Lijun, and the next target is my sister. Immediately ask your technical department to locate their mobile phones, and then immediately rush over after confirming the location." Nailin Wuxia also realized the seriousness of the problem. Orders were issued one after another, and the entire crime squad worked nervously. At this time, Wang Rubing was sitting in Zhang Hao's Passat. After talking with Qin Haodong on the phone, Zhang Hao said, "Today is a special day. Turn off the phone. Don't let anyone disturb us." "Will that work? What if something happens to me? You're not the president of the country. What can be urgent? Let's talk about it tomorrow." Then he took out his phone and turned it off first. "Well, I'll turn it off too." Wang Rubing hesitated for a moment and finally pressed the button to turn it off. Soon, the Passat left the city and drove to the suburbs. Wang Rubing laughed and said, "Zhang Hao, where are you taking me? You're not going to sell me, right?" Zhang Hao grabbed her hand and said, "How could that be possible? You're much more important than me in my heart. I would rather sell myself than sell you." "Then where are you taking me? Shouldn't we find a romantic hotel for our birthday? Why are we out of the city? I want to give you a surprise." "Of course, I can't tell you if it's a surprise. Otherwise it won't work." Zhang Hao continued to drive forward. About 20 minutes later, they were completely out of the city. They drove off the highway and along the dirt road. Soon they came to a small mound. After getting out of the car, he turned off the lights. It was dark around them. There was no light, not even a tree. Wang Rubing couldn't help but say nervously, "Zhang Hao, you don't really want to bury me here, do you?" Zhang Hao took her hand and said, "How could I? This is the birthday party I carefully prepared for you." After saying that, he raised his hand and snapped his fingers. The entire mound suddenly lit up. It turned out that the entire mound was already filled with all kinds of colorful lights of different shapes and colors, forming a beautiful heart shape. In the center of the heart shape was a large crystal-like dining table. In the center of the table was a three-tiered birthday cake. Everything exuded a charming color under the illumination of the lights, looking like a world from a fairy tale. Looking at everything in front of her, Wang Rubing covered her mouth in surprise. She was moved and said, "Zhang Hao, did you prepare all this?" "Not only me, but also my dad. We prepared this unique birthday party for you together," Zhang Hao said. "My dad believes in metaphysics very much. He said that you have an earthy life, so it's best to celebrate your birthday in an earthy environment, so that you can live a long life. That's why I purposely chose this place for you. There's only soil here, no rocks, no water, no fire, no metal, not even a tree. Although it looks bare, my dad said that it'll be especially good for your future." At this moment, Wang Rubing's heart was filled with happiness. She took Zhang Hao's hand and said, "Thank you and thank Uncle Zhang." Zhang Hao said with a smile, "You can thank me, but if you want to thank my dad, thank him in person." Wang Rubing said in surprise, "What? Uncle Zhang is here too?" "Yes, my dad saw your photo and was very satisfied with you. He wants to celebrate your birthday with me. He prepared everything here in advance." Zhang Hao took Wang Rubing to the table and shouted to an off-road vehicle parked in the other direction of the mound, "Dad, Rubing is here. Come out." "Okay, I'm here." As soon as the voice fell, the door of the off-road vehicle opened and two people got out of the car. Zhang Lijun, the director of Guangren Hospital, walked in front, followed by an old Taoist. The old Taoist was about 60 or 70 years old, with a big beard and eyebrows. He wore a gray Taoist robe and carried a sword on his back. He looked like a sage and a master. If Qin Haodong were here, he would immediately recognize that this man was Dao Tong, who had been injured by them and had fallen into the devil's path. Zhang Lijun's arrival was quite a surprise to Wang Rubing. She was not ready to meet her parents. She did not expect Zhang Hao to bring his father. At the same time, she was a little confused when she saw the old Taoist. She did not know why he brought him to her birthday party. Zhang Hao also did not know Dao Tong. He asked Zhang Lijun, "Dad, who is this Taoist priest?" Zhang Lijun said, "This is Dad's master, Dao Tong. He is absolutely a master. You should call him Grandmaster. Come and say hello to him." Although he did not believe in strange things, Zhang Hao saluted the old Taoist out of respect for Zhang Lijun. "Hello, Grandmaster." Dao Tong just nodded slightly, but his eyes were fixed on Wang Rubing. There was a faint flash of greed and excitement in his eyes. Zhang Lijun said, "How, your Grandmaster is here today to celebrate your girlfriend's birthday. Hurry up and introduce him to us." Zhang Hao introduced Wang Rubing to Zhang Lijun and Dao Tong. Then the four sat down at the table and began the formal birthday party. In addition to the birthday cake, there were also sumptuous dishes and red wine on the table. Zhang Hao poured a glass of red wine for everyone and lit the candles on the cake. He blew out the candles and made a wish. Everything was no different from a normal birthday party. After that, he took out a very exquisitely wrapped box and gave it to Wang Rubing. "Rubing, this is the birthday present I prepared for you today. Do you like it?" Wang Rubing glanced at Zhang Hao and opened the box expectantly. When she opened the lid, she was stunned. There was a crown-shaped hairpin in the box. The whole crown was made of gold and was inlaid with several shining gems. In the light, it was both noble and beautiful, looking extremely moving. After a full minute, Wang Rubing came to her senses and exclaimed, "What a beautiful hairpin! Is this for me?" Zhang Hao was very satisfied with Wang Rubing's reaction and said proudly, "Of course it's for you. Do you like it?" "Yes, I like it very much." Although Wang Rubing was a little surprised by the arrival of Zhang Lijun and Dao Tong tonight, Zhang Hao had brought her one surprise after another. Her heart was completely filled with happiness. "Put it on and see if it's beautiful," Zhang Hao said, carefully taking out the crown-shaped hairpin and putting it on Wang Rubing's head. So beautiful, so beautiful. You are my queen from now on," Wang Rubing said with a happy face. "Zhang Hao, thank you for the birthday present you prepared for me. I really like it." At this time, Dao Tong looked at Zhang Lijun and said, "Time's up. Let's start." Chapter 386. "Yes, master," Zhang Lijun said respectfully to Dao Tong. Then he turned to look at Wang Rubing and said, "Rubing, there's something I want to discuss with you." Zhang Hao said, "Dad, what can't we talk about later? Rubing hasn't blown out the candles and made a wish yet." Zhang Lijun said with a playful smile, "It doesn't matter whether I make a wish or not. It won't come true anyway." When he said this, Wang Rubing's face immediately became ugly. What did he mean by it was meaningless to make a wish? What did he mean by it couldn't come true? Zhang Hao said discontentedly, "Dad, today is Rubing's birthday. How can you say that?" Zhang Lijun ignored him and continued to say to Wang Rubing, "Rubing, Uncle Zhang wants to borrow something from you today." Zhang Hao said again, "Dad, we don't have anything at home. What do you want to borrow from Rubing?" "You shut up." Zhang Lijun glared at Zhang Hao. Although Wang Rubing was a little unhappy, she said patiently, "Uncle Zhang, just tell me what you want. I'll lend it to you as long as I have it." Zhang Lijun smiled and said, "Let me tell you a story." Both Zhang Hao and Wang Rubing were extremely surprised. They didn't know what Zhang Lijun was doing. First he said he wanted to borrow something, and now he wanted to tell a story. Zhang Lijun ignored their expressions and continued, "Legend has it that there is a kind of medicine that can make people immortal after eating it." As soon as he said this, Zhang Hao said, "Dad, you are a doctor. How can you believe this kind of rumor? There is no elixir in the world." "I've already told you to shut up." Zhang Lijun glared at Zhang Hao again and continued, "This medicine is called the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill. Although it can't really make people immortal, it can at least make people immune to all kinds of diseases and make people live hundreds or even thousands of years." Wang Rubing stopped Zhang Hao, who was about to open his mouth to refute, and said, "Uncle Zhang, whether what you said is true or not, I don't have the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill, and I can't lend it to you." Zhang Lijun ignored her again and said, "The 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill is made from the 5 internal organs of human beings. The heart of the fire attribute, the kidney of the water attribute, the lung of the metal attribute, the liver of the wood attribute, and the spleen of the earth attribute. These 5 organs, together with the soul of the dead, can make the perfect 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill." After hearing this, Wang Rubing and Zhang Hao were shocked. Zhang Hao cried, "Zhang, what are you talking about? This is obviously magic. How can it be true?" Zhang Lijun stared at him and said, "This is what your grandmaster taught me. It's true." Zhang Rubing Zhang Wang turned to Zhang and Lijun. Zhang Zhang Zhang. Zhang 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 Hao. Li Zhang Tong Zhang 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 Zhang. Zhang Hao Zhang 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 Tong. Zhang Zhang. Aru Zhang. Zhang Zhang Bi Zhang. Zhang Hao suddenly stood up and shouted, "Dad, are you crazy? What nonsense are you talking about?" Zhang Lijun's expression did not change much. He continued to say lightly, "Son, I'm not talking nonsense. You can't blame me for being cruel. I didn't want to do this." However, of the 2 owners of the spleen, one died in a car accident, and the other ran to M country. I can't find him. We can't wait any longer, or the organs we collected will lose their effectiveness. So we must gather the spleen to make the pill tonight. He opened a wooden box next to him. There were 4 neatly placed incubators in it. He pointed to the 4 incubators and said, "Look, there are already hearts, livers, spleens, and kidneys in them. We need a lung to make the pill." Zhang Hao was shocked and cried, "Dad, are you serious? This is against the law, don't you know?" Zhang Lijun's face suddenly flashed with madness and he shouted, "The law is nothing. Your grandmaster said that if we make the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill, he will give you one. You can live forever like us. Don't you want it? No, I just want to be with Rubing and Bai. Zhang Hao pulled Wang Rubing up and was about to leave. Stop right there. Zhang Lijun stood in front of Zhang Hao and Wang Rubing and said in a cold voice, Since you're here, how can you let her go? Zhang Hao felt that the Zhang Lijun in front of him was very strange. He was no longer the father he admired very much. He said angrily, You asked me to bring Rubing here for her birthday. You've already prepared for this, haven't you? Zhang Lijun sneered and said, That's right. The day you told me her birthday, I was so happy that I couldn't sleep. I was worried that I couldn't find a spleen of the earth attribute. I didn't expect you to bring one back for me. Do you know why I set the place here? Because this is the best area of the earth attribute, the most suitable for her spleen removal surgery. Soon we will be able to collect the 5 organs and ask your grandmaster to refine the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill. Then we will all be immortal. Only then did Zhang Hao realize that all this was not for Wang Rubing's birthday, but a big conspiracy. He took a step forward, stood in front of Wang Rubing, and growled at Zhang Lijun. No, whoever dares to touch a finger of Rubing today, I will fight him to the death, even if you are my father. You're so stubborn, Zhang Lijun said. You can't stop this kind of thing. Zhang Hao was just about to say something when he felt someone patting him on the back of his neck. Then he fainted and fell to the ground with a plop. Wang Rubing immediately exclaimed, Zhang Hao, what's wrong with you? Are you all right? Zhang Lijun looked at Dao Tong and asked worriedly, Taoist, how is my son? Don't worry, he's just in the way, so I knocked him out. He'll wake up in a few hours. Dao Tong said, Don't waste time. It's the time of the earth. Got it, master. Zhang Lijun said. He took a white towel from the table and covered Wang Rubing's face with it. The towel had been fed with a strong anesthetic. Wang Rubing was examining Zhang Hao on the ground. Covered by the towel, she fell to the ground with a plop. Although she was still conscious, she lost the ability to move. After all this was done, Zhang Lijun raised his hand and pushed all the cakes and other things on the table to the ground. Then he picked Wang Rubing up and put her on the table. The dining table was 2 meters long, and there was a large space above Wang Rubing's head. He took out a brush, dipped it in red ink, and drew a large soul-calming talisman on the dining table above Wang Rubing's head. At this time, Dao Tong dragged out a stove from under the dining table, took out 4 incubators, put them next to the stove, and took out 4 bronze coins from his pocket. The square holes of the coins were filled with smoke. If you looked closely, it turned out to be a ferocious ghost face. It turned out that these copper coins were magic weapons called soul-locking copper coins, which could trap people's souls inside and prevent them from reincarnating. Dao Tong took another look at Wang Rubing on the dining table and couldn't help laughing proudly. As long as I get this woman's spleen, I can refine the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill. At that time, not only will my injury be healed, but I can also seize the opportunity to break through to the supreme power realm. Dao Xian, Qin Haodong, wait for me. When I break through, I'll skin you and pull out your tendons. In the last war, Dao Tong had been hiding in Jiangnan after being injured. He had tried many ways to cure his injury, but he couldn't. His cultivation had also plummeted, from the original half-step supreme power realm to the first level of covert power. Later, he accidentally got an ancient book left by an evil cultivator, which recorded the refining of the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill. It said that the pill had the power to go against the natural order. It could not only make people live forever, but also break through the bottleneck of martial arts and greatly improve cultivation. In order to cure his injury, Dao Tong decided to refine the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill. But he didn't have this condition. Later, he found Zhang Lijun, the director of Guangren Hospital. He first threatened Zhang Lijun with poison, and then used longevity as bait to make Zhang Lijun willing to be his accomplice. It seemed that God was helping him. Everything went so smoothly. In a few hours, Dao Tong would be able to get the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill. Looking at Wang Rubing lying in front of him, Zhang Lijun was also excited. Although he had a rich family and was the director, it was not as tempting as immortality. As long as he could eat the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill made by Dao Tong, he could enjoy the world for a longer time. He took out a shiny scalpel from his pocket and was about to cut Wang Rubing's waist. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from behind. "If you dare to touch my sister, I will make you wish you were dead." Dao Tong and Zhang Lijun were startled. They looked back and saw Qin Haodong standing behind them with a murderous look. "Your sister? The heavens really have eyes, sending your sister to me." Dao Tong did not panic at all when he saw Qin Haodong. On the contrary, he was very excited. The last time they fought, Qin Haodong was only at the level of the 9th level of overt power. Although his cultivation had fallen sharply, he was also a master at the level of covert power. It was easy for him to deal with Qin Haodong. "Boy, without the help of that old guy Dao Xian, you still dare to come to die. You're tired of living." Dao Tong turned to Zhang Lijun and said, "Hurry up. I want him to see with his own eyes how his sister became the material of my alchemy." "Yes, master." Zhang Lijun promised and picked up the scalpel again. "You're courting death." Qin Haodong gave a cold shout and tapped the ground with his toes. A fist-sized piece of soil flew out and hit Zhang Lijun in the chest. Under the violent impact, although the soil was torn apart, Zhang Lijun flew back 6 or 7 meters and fell to the ground with a bang, as if he had been hit by a cannonball. He was just an ordinary person. After suffering such a heavy blow, there was a sharp pain in his chest. Then he spat out a big mouthful of blood and struggled for a long time without getting up. "Boy, I'll kill you." Seeing Qin Haodong hurt Zhang Lijun under his nose, Dao Tong was furious. He pulled out the sword behind him and used the heavenly fairy to stab Qin Haodong in the air. In his view, he was a master of covert power, and Qin Haodong had not broken through the bottleneck of covert power. Naturally, he dared not fight with him. He had even thought of Qin Haodong's next move after he dodged. At this moment, a cold light flashed in front of him, like a lightning bolt in the night sky, and suddenly struck him. Dao Tong, who had felt the great pressure of the knife in midair, hurriedly waved the sword in his hand to meet it. At this time, Qin Haodong had reached the realm of half a step to the supreme power realm, and he had cut the sword in 2 with a casual slash. The powerful force sent Dao Tong flying backward, and he began to vomit blood in midair. Half step to the supreme power realm. How is this possible? Dao Tong's heart was full of fear. He couldn't figure out how Qin Haodong's cultivation had improved so much in just a few days. Even in his heyday, he might not be able to win. Chapter 387. After feeling the strength of Qin Haodong's cultivation, Dao Tong had no time to think about the reason, nor did he care about Zhang Lijun, who was still lying on the ground. The gap between their cultivation was so great that there was no chance of getting lucky. If he continued to fight, he would die. The only thing he could think of now was how to escape. "Boy, you wait and see. I'll make you pay for what you did today 10 times sooner or later." Dao Tong looked at Qin Haodong fiercely. His eyes were full of hatred, as if he wanted to swallow him alive. After that, a blood mist appeared on the surface of his body. The blood mist grew larger and larger, slowly wrapping his whole body in it. The blood shadow skill was an evil method. Last time, he relied on this method to escape from Dao Xian. Although the cost of using the blood shadow skill was great, he couldn't care less at this time. Qin Haodong stood there, just looking at Dao Tong with a sneer, without any intention of stopping him. The blood mist began to drift away from its place. Unexpectedly, before it could drift far, there was a muffled bang, as if it had hit an invisible wall. Then Dao Tong let out a scream and fell to the ground again, covered in blood. Qin Haodong stepped over, looked at him playfully and said, "Run, why don't you run?" After determining the location of Wang Lijun and others, Qin Haodong arrived here one step ahead of Nalan Wuxia and others, where he saw Dao Tong. The evil old Taoist had escaped once last time. How could he not be prepared this time? He quickly set up a trap around the mound. You, what do you want? At this moment, Dao Tong's heart was full of fear. The young man, who was so weak in front of him last time, was now so powerful that even escape had become an extravagant hope. How dare you ask me what I want? You kidnapped my sister. You killed innocent creatures one after another. You wanted to refine the 5 elements of soul-nourishing pill. You are unrepentant. Of course, I want to get rid of evil for the people. Every word Qin Haodong took a step forward, and every step seemed to step on Dao Tong's heart. Dao Tong cried in panic. You can't kill me. I'm a member of the Qingyi school. If you kill me, my master won't spare you. You're just an abandoned disciple. How dare you say you're a member of the Qingyi sect? Moreover, you've done so many heinous things. Even if you say the sect leader of the Qingyi sect is your father, I'll still kill you today. Qin Haodong stretched out his right hand, and the 1,000 blades appeared in his palm. It turned into a flash of lightning and cut toward Dao Tong. Dao Tong grabbed the broken sword in his hand and tried to resist desperately, but the gap between them was too big. His blood-drawing skill had consumed a lot of his pneuma. Before he could see what was going on, he felt a pain in his waist. The 1,000 blades had been inserted into his ribs. Ah! Dao Tong let out a heart-wrenching scream and stepped back, clutching his wound. Didn't you want to cut off my sister's spleen? I'll destroy your spleen first. Qin Haodong pierced Dao Tong's spleen with his sword, and then the 1,000 blades turned into a cold light again, and pierced Dao Tong's liver. Then there were a few more screams. The 1,000 blades pierced the old Taoist's liver, kidney, and lungs one after another. You can't kill me. Please let me go. Dao Tong was injured one after another, and covered in blood. He had long lost his sage-like demeanor. Although he had been forced into desperation by Dao Xian several times before, he knew that Dao Xian would not kill him. But this time was different. He had smelled death from the young man in front of him. Go to hell. Whether it was refining the 5 elements of soul-nourishing elixir, or kidnapping Wang Rubing, Qin Haodong had made up his mind to kill Dao Tong. The 1,000 blades in his hand flashed, and turned into a flash of light, stabbing Dao Tong's heart. At this time, a loud shout came from the side. Spare him! Although the voice was still 100 meters away, it was full of energy. It came from a master of internal strength. Then, a figure galloped toward this side in the night. But Qin Haodong ignored it. No matter who came today, Dao Tong must die. This evil old Taoist must not be left alive. The 1,000 blades did not stop. It directly pierced Dao Tong's heart and penetrated his heart. Dao Tong spat out a big mouthful of blood, then fell to the ground on his back, his eyes full of unwillingness. He had always felt that he was superior and could decide the life and death of others at will. But he never really thought that he would be killed one day. Now the day had come. The young man had no scruples about piercing his heart. Qin Haodong killed Dao Tong, and looked back at the source of the voice. At this time, the black shadow had come to him. It was Dao Xian, Dao Tong's senior brother. Dao Xian looked at Dao Tong, whose internal organs had been pierced, and let out a deep sigh. Immeasurable Lord, junior brother, I'm still late. You've killed too many people. This is also God's will. Qin Haodong said. Taoist priest, Dao Tong killed people, and took their internal organs to refine the 5 elements of soul-nourishing elixir. I've cleaned up the sect for you. After that, he began to be secretly on guard, not knowing what Dao Xian's attitude would be. Dao Xian sighed again and said, My little friend, I know Dao Tong has his reasons for dying. I don't blame you for killing him, but he is a member of the Qingyi school after all. Please allow me to take his remains back to the head. Yes. Qin Haodong agreed without hesitation. Death was like a lamp going out. Dao Tong was dead, so there was no need to care about his body. Moreover, he had a very good impression of Dao Xian. If it hadn't been for the old Taoist's help last time, he and his daughter would have died in the hands of Dao Tong. Thank you. Dao Xian picked up Dao Tong's body with one hand, and quickly disappeared into the night. At this time, there was a harsh siren in the night sky, followed by countless beams of light. A police car surrounded the mound, and Nalan Wuxia rushed over with dozens of armed special police officers. She ran to Qin Haodong and asked eagerly, "How is it? Is Rubing all right?" "She's fine. Fortunately, I came in time." After a brief introduction of the situation, Qin Haodong pointed to Zhang Lijun, who had just gotten up from the ground, and said, "The case is very clear. He killed all the people." Knowing that the murderer was Zhang Lijun, Nalan Wuxia came to him and snapped, "As a doctor, you don't want to treat people and save people. Instead, you do such inhumane things. You don't deserve to be a human being, let alone a doctor. Just wait for the punishment of the law." Seeing that his master, whom he regarded as a god, was dead, Zhang Lijun knew that the situation was hopeless. After being reprimanded by Nalan Wuxia, he cried out crazily, "Why? Why do you do this to me? Is it wrong for me to want to live forever? Do you know how many people I have saved as a doctor over the years? How many people have I saved by opening Guangren Hospital? If I live forever, I can save many, many more people. What's wrong with killing a few people to make elixirs? I deserve it. Why should you stop me?" "You're crazy." Qin Haodong looked at Zhang Lijun, who had lost his mind, and said to Nalan Wuxia, "This man is possessed. Don't talk nonsense, just take him away." Nalan Wuxia waved her hand, and immediately several policemen rushed up with handcuffs. "Stop, all of you, stop." A shiny scalpel appeared in Zhang Lijun's hand, and he shouted wildly, "You can't arrest me. No one can punish me except myself." After that, he turned the scalpel and stabbed himself directly in the heart. Then he fell to the ground with a thud, and there was no breath of life. Zhang Lijun's suicide was beyond everyone's expectation, but it was also good. It saved them a lot of trouble. Nalan Wuxia waved her hand, and someone immediately took his body away. Qin Haodong took Nalan Wuxia to the 4 incubators. He reached out and took the 4 soul-locking copper coins that Dao Tong had put on them in his palm. He used several incantations to break the restriction on the copper coins. The 4 souls broke away from the shackles of the soul-locking copper coins and slowly rose. After bowing to Qin Haodong in the void, they entered samsara. The soul-locking copper coins were put into the storage ring. Qin Haodong said to Nalan Wuxia, "Well, I'll leave these things to you." Nalan Wuxia sighed and said sadly, "These people are dead. Send their organs to the hospital first. We'll discuss how to deal with them after contacting their families." Soon, the police finished dealing with the scene and left with Zhang Lijun's body and the organs. Only Nalan Wuxia stayed. Qin Haodong came to Wang Rubing and massaged her body a few times. The greenwood genuine qi quickly forced the anesthetic out of her body. Wang Rubing had just lost the ability to move, but her mind was clear, and she was very clear about what had happened. When she regained her ability to move, she threw herself into Qin Haodong's arms and cried. What had just happened had really frightened her. If Qin Haodong had been a step slower, she would have become the material of the old Taoists' alchemy. "Well, it's all right." Qin Haodong patted her on the back and comforted her. "Get up, your boyfriend is still lying on the ground." Wang Rubing climbed out of Qin Haodong's arms and said eagerly, "Haodong saved Zhang Hao. What his father did has nothing to do with him." "I know," Qin Haodong said as he patted Zhang Hao a few times. Zhang Hao was just knocked out by Dao Tong. After dredging his qi and blood, he immediately sat up from the ground. "Rubing, none of you can touch Rubing," Zhang Hao shouted and looked around. When he saw Wang Rubing standing beside him intact, he grabbed her and said, "Did my father do anything to you?" Wang Rubing took his hand and said, "It's all right. It's all over. Haodong saved us." Zhang Hao looked around again and saw only Nalan Wuxia and the others. He asked, "What the hell is going on? Where's my father? And that abominable old Taoist, he must have bewitched my father. Zhang Hao, you must be strong. Your father, he..." At this point Wang Rubing stammered. She was afraid that Zhang Hao couldn't take the blow. "Let me tell you, some things had to be faced sooner or later. It was better to get the pain over with." Qin Haodong took Zhang Hao to sit down and told him the whole case from beginning to end. Finally he said, "Although Director Zhang is your father, he is really guilty. He killed 4 innocent people in succession, and finally committed suicide to escape punishment. How could this be? How could this be? Zhang Hao's face was pale, and his expression was dull. He kept repeating these two sentences. What happened tonight was too much of a blow to him. Wang Rubing looked at Qin Haodong and said worriedly, "Is Zhang Hao all right?" "He's fine. He just can't accept it for a while. Take him back to rest and comfort him." Qin Haodong and Wang Rubing helped Zhang Hao into their car, and then Wang Rubing took Zhang Hao back. After they left, there were only him and Nailan Wuxia. Nailan Wuxia looked at Qin Haodong with watery eyes. Suddenly, she rushed forward and hugged Qin Haodong's neck and kissed him hard. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.